All right, I think we got everything up and running. Good evening, everybody. How are you? Happy time zones. Happy Wednesday. It's a pleasure to see you all. Our third in a row installment of A Cozy Reading Of. And we got a chonker this evening, so we're going to be doing a read-through of Beyond the Reverie. So obviously, for those of you that have read through this before, you know that it's a biggin'. Multiple parts. We're going to start right from the top with another Hot Springs Paradise. Nice and chillin'. You know what I mean? Gandalf, what's up, buddy? How are you? Filbert, my guy, what's shaking? Hope you guys are having a good day. Here's another toasty one here. Return to the Gardens is my favorite one. Dude, they're all fantastic. Like, it's bonkers how good it is. And by the way, I don't know how I forgot about True Bonds from Azure. It's like... Yeah, Gandalf, I saw that. I think servers just went up, so you'll have to, obviously, I've got it downloaded. I don't know if and when I'm gonna have much time for it, with Daybreak coming out so soon, but, I have this, like this you know what I mean? Like, it's like that electricity, like, I'm excited, because I know Daybreak's right there. Like, we're right there, and I'm just, like, I'm excited. I'm anxious. So, I've got the Chug Jug loaded. I've got some nice tea. Line Type, what's up, bud? How are you? All right, so, yeah, this should be, it's roughly 3 or so hours. Should be, right around there. So, we're gonna get started, here momentarily. I'm gonna do my best to just relax, pace myself, brain to mouth, you know what I mean? Just try and focus, do what I can. Daybreak is coming in just perfect time. I'm actually building a new PC right now, waiting for some parts to arrive. Hopefully they arrive before Daybreak launches. Cutting it close, fam. Friday. What are you putting into your rig, or like what's the new rig parts wise, like CPU, GPU? I feel like those are the two Mondo ones. What's the chipset you're rolling with? 7800X. So that's the new AMD, right? And 70. Oh, so you're doing it's an AMD build, right on. All red rig? I dig it, man. Dusk, what's happening? It's been almost a year, but I'm glad to be back watching you. Hope you're good, Neo. Yo, Dusk, it's a pleasure to have you back. It's an absolute honor just to be here with everybody, man. You know, we get to walk this trail together. You know what I'm saying? Not to sound like a cheese ball, but I mean it. It's we have an incredible community, and I would say the majority of us linked up over our love for trails. Games, obviously, JRPGs in particular, but I feel like a lot of it stems from our coming together in appreciation for trails, you know what I mean? The energy is ablaze, dude, it really is. Like I said, I'm anxious, I'm hyped, I'm excited for it. If you look at my message, you would laugh. All right, hang on. Can I read it out loud, Dan? Can I read it out loud? It's in Discord. And for, you know what? And I'll just extend this invite now. And we'll continue to do that throughout our playthrough of Daybreak, obviously. You know, we have a fantastic community, man. You know, everybody can say that about their own communities, and I have no doubt about that. But I can only speak for our community, and again, it goes beyond video games in a sense, you know, like we all enjoy, but most recently for myself, Gundam, fantastic. You know, trying to really spread my wings in the anime department, but you know, we have a good time, we have a great time. We're just a great group of friends, and you know, anybody and everybody is more than welcome. I'll read it after, Dan. How's that? Because I know we got a long one ahead of us. We got about 3 hours, so yeah, that's gonna put us pretty close to the midnight mark. So we're let's get rocking and rolling, shall we? We're gonna start with another hot springs paradise. January, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Between two great mountains at the tip of the Calvardian Basin sits Longlai. The town is known for two things, being the eastern entrance to the Republic and its exceptional hot springs. Though these enticing factors does it continue to welcome tourists hailing from both home and abroad. Yet today, it served guests quite unlike its many unseasoned visitors. These had come from another renowned hot springs paradise situated in the northern reaches of Erebonia. The depth of flavor in the food here is just exquisite. Agreed. The Phoenix Wings food is certainly nothing to sneeze at, but I have my doubts the chef could replicate dishes this unique in taste. The Bashan Inn's reputation continues to precede itself. Baron Teo and Lady Lucia Schwarzer were sampling the inn's culinary delights, spirits high and stomachs filling fast. Their daughter Elise sat next to them, her spirit a bit lower by comparison, but her brows furrowed with concern. I'm sure its luxuries come with just an equally luxurious price tag. And there's 4 of us, so even 2 nights must have cost a small fortune. Upon realizing what she said, she shook her head. I didn't mean to dampen the mood. I know we have the money, but all my budgeting as student council president has made a terrible habit of me seeing the numbers in everything. Her older brother, Reen, couldn't help but let out a chuckle. Then the budget buster and you will like how much we saved because we're not here as paying customers. We were invited by the owners personally. They said they wanted to get to know us since we run similar establishments, so here we are. And we'll be inviting them to Ymir sooner than later, of course. Right, Dad? Oh, absolutely. And add this to the list of boons coming from our countries finally coming to terms with one another. No. See, now I'm gonna break immersion because I put that on loop, farn it. Gee willikers. See? We're already off to the races. Wouldn't be us without a technical difficulty. Alright, should be looping now. Should be A-okay. Here goes nothing. Sorry. The Republic is reveling in unheard of levels of prosperity, and the relations between our people are more active and festive than ever. I, for one, welcome any opportunity to further foster friendship. The Baron took another healthy sip of his Baiju before continuing. Friendship over fighting, I say. Such a shame that the world tends to overcomplicate that simple concept. Seeing her husband's glass was almost empty, Lucia filled it to the brim while adding her own thoughts. That's all the more reason why we need to make the most of this invitation and enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Their children nodded in agreement. And even that aside, there's no reason to spoil a family vacation when we so rarely have time to take them. Oh, I read about some unusual sweet dishes worth trying here. Would you like to share some with me, Reem? In a bit. I'm thinking of taking another soak in the hot springs, so I might be in the mood for something sweet after. The food here's delicious, but as far as I'm concerned, the hot springs are the real star of the show. That's my boy right there. The ruling lord of the hot springs paradise would never let a good discussion about them pass him by. He was as fond of their quality and soothing effects as Reen, enthusiasm undeniably apparent from the warmth of his tone and the width of his smile. Their medicinal springs happen to be a favorite of mine. I can't help but be fascinated by them time and time again. I can believe it. I've always known about them, but here's the first place I've been able to feel the way they warm you right to your core. Think we could make one available at the Phoenix Wings? It'd be worth a try, but that comes with its own obstacles. For as many problems as Teo expressed in practical terms, Reen held just as many proposed solutions. The conversation grew more involved by the minute, leaving the ladies of the house to pleasantly bask in their glow and continue enjoying the meal before them. All four felt the same, that it had been too long since they could enjoy each other's company, but the wait had been well worth it. That night, after indulging in his post-dinner soak in the hot springs and telling his family he was going for a walk, Reen departed the inn. All right, let's do this. He took in a deep breath. The crisp night air of Long Lai filled his lungs. The hot springs were an excellent bonus to his trip, to be sure, but it was not the real reason he agreed to visit. He had come in search of Yun Ka-Fai, the famed sword hermit. Master Ka-Fai was the founder of the 8 Leaves, 1 Blade school, of which Reen was a practitioner, and though now over 70 years old, he was still regarded as one of the strongest combatants on the continent. They had not met since before Reen's enrollment at Thor's. Many a letter was exchanged during the 4 years that followed, but even they had stopped after Reen earned the right to call himself a Divine Blade over a year ago. There was so very much he wished to discuss with his master. What he had learned in his 4 years of training, what had transpired since becoming a Divine Blade, the true meaning behind being the final blade to master the 8 Leaves. There's plenty I'd like to ask that have nothing to do with swordsmanship, too. All these questions, all impossible to answer without first knowing the whereabouts of a single individual. Even a senior practitioner like Cassius Bright claimed ignorance, having received not a single update from their old master. He had always been an elusive but traceable sort, but wherever he was now, he was next to impossible to track. That was until word of a blade master being sighted in Long Lai reached Reen's ears. The man held a fondness for the town's specialties, those being the hot springs and its fragrant tea leaves, making the sighting worthy of particular note. He also knew from the letters before they stopped that he intended to journey eastward, making Long Lai one of the most plausible stopping points. The word came to him just as the Schwarzers were invited to stay at the inn during their New Year vacation. Reen's instincts told him the timing was a little too fortunate, but with how vague the lead was, even it would most likely result in him leaving the same as he had arrived. While he had not discussed the rumor being key to his traveling here, his family seemed to sense it was more than just a simple pleasure trip for him. I know Dad would have a great time catching up with him, but I don't want to get his hopes up for nothing. These thoughts in mind, Reen made his way through the night streets. Like, we're gonna get to be here. I would imagine. Like, we're gonna get to come here. Like, we're so close, man. Long Lai's architecture was distinctly Eastern, making it a uniquely intriguing sight among most of Calvard's towns and cities. This was not to say it was similar to Crossbell's East Street. With subtle colors paired with dignified beauty, every wall and stone exuded the traditional concepts of wabi-sabi. Sorry if I mispronounce things. One look was enough to understand the region was rich with history. This quiet charm would give way to contrastly lively evenings, where tourists both westward and farther eastward were greeted to stalls dedicated to the hot springs and more. This too held a traditional sort of charm. Reen asked several merchants if they had any information pertaining to the whereabouts of his master, somewhat sheepishly purchasing a number of souvenirs from their stalls to keep himself from being a nuisance. They, he justified, would make excellent gifts for his friends, his co-workers, and his students. I can't believe it's almost time for them to graduate. I might be more emotional about theirs than I was for mine. For the first time, Reen would get to experience what it was like for the young birds he had taken under his wing for 2 years to finally leave the nest. Their first year had been eventful, to say the least. What had started as a problem class full of disagreements and mounting tension had slowly grown into one of compassion and understanding for one another. It was with each new discovery about themselves and every new ordeal the world sought to impose upon them that they grew not only as individuals but as a team. He hoped this period would remain as much a meaningful part of their lives as it would always be for him. The months before the Retributive Tower's appearance held many a trial, making the 10 months that followed in its shadow pass all too quickly. In that time, Reen's students continued to mature, building on everything they accomplished in their first year to prepare for and settle into their desired future. Indeed, whether it was by overcoming their demons or by learning to work with them in a healthier fashion, their paths up until now had been well worn. And, while they may have had to rest from time to time, he was proud to be part of why their steps continued to face forward. Proud, but also lonely at the thought of saying goodbye. As their second year drew to a close, lacking in grandiose events but still rewarding in its own right, it was this mixture of emotions that bore conflict within him most. Can't believe I'll be going through it all over again next year, and even the year after that. Hell of a career I chose to pursue, huh? He didn't know when he stopped walking. Realizing this, he resumed his search, paying respect in mind to the many generations of educators who came before him. No matter where he looked, he could not find Master Kafai in Long Lai. It was, however, still too early to say whether the trip had been in vain, as he had at least caught an unverified report of the Blade Master being seen in the mountains to the south. Wandering such terrain at night wasn't going to be ideal, but Reen was already firm on spending the next day with his family. Tonight, it would have to be. Making a brief stop to the inn to tuck his souvenirs somewhere secure, he then departed for his new destination. The mountain's winding, half-beaten trails would be more treacherous at night, but they were not off limits as such. The key, Reen knew, would be to not rely on sight alone. His sense of hearing and smell, perhaps even touch, were going to be equally vital in the hours ahead. Calling upon his experience and intellect to heighten all 5 senses, he took in his surroundings in full. This really takes me back to training in the mountains. To call the experience training would imply his time being one of simple tutelage between student and master, but it equated to so much more. The danger then was far worse than it was now, in some days requiring him to set foot in highly dangerous territories just to fight the day's food to survive. It sounds like the Kunlun Mountains may have been used for a similar exercise a long time ago. Reen was certain to think on the information gained during his search as he continued along the trail. Searching for evidence of human activity in an environment like this was not a difficult task. Humans always leave something indicative of their presence behind that no wild creature would, be it a long-dead fire, footprints, or traces of going on the hunt. One need only follow the light to lead to their source. Reen did so, advancing with the caution instilled in him by both his old master and hunting enthusiast of a father. They soon led him precisely to clear evidence that a human had been in the area, though the evidence itself was far from what he expected. Remains of a camp? No. It didn't look like it had been left by martial artists in training or roaming hunters, but the most peculiar thing was that there were multiple sites like the first, all evenly spaced from one to the next. It was as though something was being measured. Maybe this is from a group of scholars doing field research, but it seems too large in scale for that. There was nothing more to be found here. Reen advanced. Soon after, he found another unusual mound of evidence. It's like someone forced their way through here in a car, or more like hacked open a path wide enough for a car to pass through it. All further inspection here suggested that whoever was responsible had given up on this endeavor, leading him to wonder if they somehow found success elsewhere. And if they did, why had they done this at all? The question pestered him. If there was anywhere to clear wide paths, the remote depths of the mountain certainly were not it. But instinct told him he was only a step away from discovering the answer. If I keep following this trail a little farther... At this thought, Reen sensed someone approaching. One person. Two people. Yes, there were two, and it was clear that they were aware of his presence as well. Only for a fleeting second did he think they might be the ones responsible for the strange trails, but a deadly tension that now thickened the air told him these were no simple scholars. He felt them draw near, the night veiling themselves well. And then he felt them stop. "How about you show yourselves?" He spoke without placing his hand on his tachi, signifying to those watching that he had no desire to fight. Their silhouettes then silently emerged from the darkest shadows of the mountains. They looked very much like the shinobi of the East he had heard about, their forms clad from top to bottom in black garments and their faces fully obscured. "I see your insight poses a threat after all, divine blade of the Empire. The contact with our client has yet to begin, but we will make an exception for one among their list of dangerous persons." The silhouettes then charged. They caught him completely off guard, drawing short, straight blades to attack him as they narrowed in. Reen's eyes widened in surprise, but nearly in the same moment he was in a fighting stance, hand over his still-sheathed tachi. "Fifth form, Morning Moon." I'm gonna stop for a quick second, and that's probably one of my favorite bits. Not only the visuals, but the animations. Like, they're just they're so good. And I promise to everybody, I know I guess I have been intentionally ignoring chat. I mean, no disrespect. I love you guys. You know that. I'm just trying to stay focused in. When we finish up this bit, I'll double back. We'll catch up. We'll do some chit-chatting. We'll get some hydration going. And then we'll keep moving after that. Promise. Love you. Mean it. He perceived the direction of his foe's attacks to evade them, then mounted a counterattack of his own. All it took was that instant to repel their assault and leave them vulnerable. Ordinarily, this would be the time to take the offensive, but all Reen could do was stare at the two with disbelief. The thought entered my mind as I saw you move, but now that we've crossed blades... He paused, the disbelief in his eyes giving way to a more intent gaze. "Are you practitioners of the Eight Leaves School?" Another pause, this time from the silhouettes, before answering as though they were well aware the question was coming. "No, though we do possess ties to the school. We are of the Ikaruga, practitioners of the Black God One Blade School." The what? Reen was left stunned. The two Ikaruga held their blades horizontally, ready to thrust them forward at any moment. It was as though they wanted to make clear that while they had been caught off guard once, he would not be so fortunate twice. Reen responded by assuming the middle stance with his tachi. But just as the sides were only a beat away from engaging in battle, it caught me off guard. What could only be described as a black cyclone roared from the darkness at such speed that it seemed certain to slice anything it touched. Its appearance caught Reen by surprise more than the initial attacks by the silhouettes. He had not suspected an attack from that angle, that distance, or even that moment. His enemies, on the other hand, did not so much as flinch at the sight. The approaching blade, over an arge and a half in length, was heading directly for Reen's back. He couldn't possibly dodge it now. Perhaps he should have noticed. Perhaps it was impossible to notice. Whatever the answer, the divine blade of the Empire would soon fall. The silhouettes waited in for his final moments to be, convinced of no other fate in his future. When Reen spun his body in a full circle, applying the intensity built into his tachi from the motion to swing. The blow made was weighted yet precise, shifting the incoming blade to a new direction without mitigating its near overpowering force. This technique was an application of the first form, Helix. There was no greater course in the moment than to use it to redirect the attack without it ever making direct contact. The spinning blade was now significantly off its intended course, but Reen slashed at it again, birthing a shockwave that further shifted its path. The blade went flying hairs to the right of the direction it had come from. A hand was there to deftly catch it midair. You may have only recently taken the title, but you are worthy of being called a divine blade all the same. You use the unclouded eye well. From this hand emerged a new figure from the darkness. While he was clad in similar garments to the silhouettes, something about his presence was much more inspired by comparison. His musculature was thoroughly discernible beneath his body, covering fortified suit. His every movement, however slight, reflected a complete lack of hesitation, and the faint light of his eyes, visible through his mask, projected no emotion whatsoever. The man possessed the aura of a true warrior, one projected only by those who have fought more battles than was possible to count. Fall back, he is too formidable a foe for you to handle. The silhouette slid into the darkness in an instant. Only the new arrival was left to face Reen. I need to know, who are you, and why did you attack me? Our contract forbids the disclosure of such information. You will leave this place now, fledgling Divine Blade. The tone was not one of advice nor one of an order. It was as if the man were stating a fact, his calmness veiling an undertone of malice that told Reen what would happen if he did not do as was told. I'm afraid I can't do that without an explanation. Not when I haven't found what I'm looking for yet. I understand. Then. There was no longer anything to discuss. All they could do was battle. I, Kurogane of the Rogetsu School, shall be your opponent. Kurogane stood at attention, the large blade he had thrown before now pointed. I'd have rather settled this with words, but I can see that's not an option. Reen sighed, taking his own stance in turn. Then Reen Schwarzer, master of the 8 Leaves One Blade School's 7th form, shall be yours. The Divine Blade moved instantly. The bizarre weapon Kurogane wielded was less akin to a sword and more 4 equally sized blades arranged in the shape of a cross, their bases connecting to a single point. That he could direct this large weighted shuriken as though it was a simple child's toy spoke volumes about how strong he was. Still, even it was not infallible, for it was not one to be ideally used in close-range combat. Kurogane appeared to have no other key weapons on hand either, meaning that if Reen could force him to fight where he would be at his most disadvantageous, he would very likely come out of this the victor. This was what he had in mind when choosing to act first. Second form, Gale. He closed the gap between them, drew his blade, and made a wide swing toward his opponent in the blink of an eye. Kurogane blocked the blow with ease. That, however, meant nothing in the larger scheme of things. Reen knew well this man's capabilities. So long as the gap between them was closed, and it was, he considered the attack a success. But just as he thought he would be able to push onward and overpower his foe by mounting a newly fierce assault, Kurogane had split his cross-shaped shuriken in half. The ease at which he did it made clear this was intended by design. Savage, dude. He can dual-wield double sabers? There was no hiding his shock. In the West, double sabers were seen as relics from the Dark Ages that were difficult to utilize. Crow was the only person Reen knew who was competent with one, and only one. The skill it would take to use two was almost too difficult to fathom. His surprise created an opening that Kurogane was not going to let pass unexploited. Possessing twin, two-ended blades allowed the shinobi to perform considerably more strikes than Reen, giving him no chance to push back. Steel sparked as their weapons clashed. Kurogane was dominant for some time, but he could do nothing to bolster his advantage. With strike and spark after strike and spark, the advantage was moving back to Reen. This was in part due to him being used to fighting this weapon that defied rationale, but it was also because he had been given the time to find what he was looking for: the perfect range in which to attack. Double sabers were forged with a shorter reach than they appeared to have, something inevitable due to their handle being in the middle. It could have been because he was also used to them as shuriken, but the length of Kurogane's sabers were even shorter than Crow's, meaning Reen would have to adjust with the longer length of his blade. He measured patiently, staying only just out of Kurogane's reach, and evading the onslaught by a hair's breadth each time prior to countering. It was calculated quickly thanks to Kurogane's frequent, rapid attacks, meaning all Reen had to do now was wait for the right moment. This moment would come in the form of his opponent showing impatience for his stalled battle, driving him to take an unneeded step forward. Reen evaded the strike expertly, instantly returning it with an upward diagonal slash. The forceful swing of his tachi made contact with the handle of Kurogane's own swung weapon, knocking it clean out of his hand. Reen dashed forward to make use of this veiled opportunity, but after only a flickering of bewilderment, Kurogane moved to deny him. He blocked Reen's attack with the double saber still in his possession, then hurled a hidden kunai with his free hand, jumping backward a significant distance while doing so. Very good, divine blade of 8 leaves. You may pale to the skill of our princess, but you without a doubt deserve your reputation. Princess? Reed's intonation went unanswered as Kurogane took a notably different stance than before. I shall demonstrate my respect for your skill with my finest technique. This put Reen staunchly on guard. Senses heightened, he focused every nerve in his body, fixing his eyes on whatever was to come of Kurogane, who was now gone. Nothing remained where Reen's opponent had just stood. He hadn't taken his eyes off him, never eased himself for a moment, yet Kurogane was nowhere to be seen. How? How had he moved that quickly? Was it some kind of spatial translocation? But there were no signs to indicate either one. Was it that he never moved at all and was still there, sight unseen? No, that wasn't it either. The double saber Reen had repelled to the ground was also gone. I can still sense him, so he hasn't gone far. Reen suppressed the panic welling up within, honing his senses a second time. That was when another black cyclone swirled toward him from the shadows. He half expected something of this nature, so with little deviation, he was able to deflect it as he did the first time. The attack indicated that Kurogane had reassembled his shuriken and recovering its lost half so he could throw it again. It also indicated, together with the slight changes in his surroundings, where he was now positioned. Reen needed a little more time to know where he was for certain. But ahead of making a solid conclusion, the cyclone came at him yet again from a new angle. That was fast. Though he blocked this attack as well as the last, before he could fully correct his posture, the next cyclone approached. The gap between was getting shorter and shorter. There was another. The time was shorter, and another, shorter. Soon these assorted smaller cyclones were seemingly growing into a blended grand storm of death with Reen trapped in its center. This doesn't feel like I'm being attacked by a single person. Did he make phantom copies of himself? He had no idea from where the next cyclone would form, and by the time he located it, the next one was ready. Even the unclouded eye wasn't going to be enough for him to deduce Kurogane's location. He had been able to repel every blade that met with his so far, but that was growing increasingly difficult. I didn't want to use it, but I'm not sure I have a choice. Well aware that doing so would place him in danger, Reen took his mind off the battle. He gave up blocking and evading attacks, dedicating the bare minimum of his focus to not sustaining lethal blows and focusing his mind inward. He focused on the power that he had long cultivated inside of him, the power he had feared, loathed, and rejected. The power he now relied on, desired, and nearly surrendered himself to. The power he faced with his loved ones at his side, making it a true part of himself. With his mind clear as day, he unleashed his full strength. Enlightened spirit unification! He imbued his Tachi with the great powers surging out of him, crying out as he did so, and spinning his body forcibly around to create a bladed circle around him. The energy released by his Tachi repelled all forthcoming shuriken with ease, and with them, Kurogane's phantom copies lurking in the darkness faded to nothing. With that, there you are! He charged toward Kurogane. The man was thoroughly overwhelmed by Reen's sudden counterattack, throwing him completely off balance. There was nothing he could do to repel what would come next. It's time to settle this. Reen swung his Tachi downward while pouring all of his might into a final single strike. But just as the two felt the battle was coming to an end, Zeroth form, duality. Accompanied with a voice as beautiful as a bell was a slash tearing through the sky, its color so black it threatened to eclipse the moon. I literally just got chills in the back of my neck. It effortlessly stopped Reen's weapon from reaching its target. But that wasn't all. What? With a high-pitched metallic sound, Reen's beloved Tachi was sundered cleanly in two. Princess? Kurogane was also taken back by this new arrival. I heard what was happening from both our scouts. You could have invited me to join the fun instead of keeping it all to yourself. The words as she chided Kurogane indicated dissatisfaction, but the music of her tone betrayed her excitement. Reen made to see who this mysterious figure was. I need to know who this is, in a bad way. Yeah. Yeah. And the sight of her alone took his breath away. She was young, wearing a fortified suit that looked to be a marriage of classical and modern Eastern styles, with long silver hair that almost appeared to glow in the pale moonlight. Her age was likely close to Reen's, perhaps a little younger, with well-defined features that still held traces of adolescence, pairing strikingly in contrast to the empty void behind her eyes. There was the air of a young noblewoman who had been sheltered from impurities all her life, and the stench of a baleful warrior who had bathed in the blood of countless lives. How was she both and neither at once? Reen could not understand, but it was this very quality that made her all the more captivating and dangerous. In the woman's left hand was a large, black engraved blade that threatened to freeze him for daring a glance at it. No doubt it was what halved Reen's Tachi moments ago. What did... Reen fumbled for the words as he clutched the useless handle tightly in his hand. The fair-haired woman only smiled as she looked down upon it. Your weapon was very fine, but it was never any match for my friend, I'm afraid. She spun the black blade in her hands around gently before holding it up towards the night sky to seemingly display it with pride. It wasn't hard to see why she would boast about possessing such a weapon. He had seen many a blade of historical significance, but instinct told him that hers was better than any of those. The blunt side featured an intricate design of deep gray that, while he could not discern its meaning there and then, he knew was nothing less than a work of art. There was an aura about it, one cold as ice, that seemed to reject its worldly surroundings, making it capable of cutting through anything it so desired. It came in company with a beautiful hilt of deep red that contrasted its body without feeling out of place. This juxtaposition was, in a sense, much a reflection of its wielder, with their two opposing natures being distinctive yet also as one. Reen thought as he observed. Her blade was clearly something special, but that alone did not explain the strength behind her attack. He had never heard of the technique she used, but it was certainly connected to the 8 leaves in some way, and the skill she showed in executing it made her equal to a divine blade. He was so fixated as these thoughts rushed through his mind that he was only brought out by her sudden laughter. I didn't think I'd ever meet you here. I wonder if our old master is behind guiding us to the same place, or if it's just a happy coincidence. Wait. The manner in which she spoke and her familiarity with Reen gave him a theory. That technique you just used was really something. Consider me intrigued. It's put you a league above more interesting than our senior practitioners. So he was right. Excuse me. Are you? But before he could hear what he already knew, she turned away, refusing to let him finish the question. He isn't here, so why don't you run on back to your family? Go and make the most of your vacation. Just don't let your skill with a blade slip. The world will need it again one day. She spoke with a certain satisfaction as she pointed down to the other half of his broken blade, and then she leapt high, seemingly disappearing on the other side of the moon. Reen could only stare, dumbfounded as she vanished. He couldn't even speak. Kurogane left with her. The Ikaruga, the Black God One Blade School, and our senior practitioners. Reen had been unable to fulfill his objective, and not just that. He was left with countless new questions about the people he encountered and the mountain itself. He felt there was meaning behind being guided to this specific place, but how important it was or what it entailed, he did not know. And yet, the person responsible for discerning that won't be me. Looking down at his broken Tachi, he was struck anew with how massive the world truly was. And he realized that, now that his master was confirmed to be elsewhere, the purpose of his visit to Long Lai was nothing more than to enjoy a wonderful, ordinary vacation with his family. This meeting here was but a peculiar coincidence. For now, at least. When I get back, I'll need to reforge my Tachi, and myself. Something stirred in this region, all across Calvard, but there was nothing he could do about that, and as he was. All he could focus on was training and bettering himself so he could one day play a part against the next threat that loomed over the distant horizon. Now resolve welling in his soul, he made his way through the now still mountain trail, back to where his loving family awaited. another Hot Springs Paradise, and it is like I remember in the moment saying to myself, man, like I wish that this had been voiced, but also I like the fact that we get to read it. I don't know, there's just something about it's even like, you know, we'll often like kind of complain, you know what I mean, about like or jokingly more often than not, like, oh, Falcom's budget, not everything is fully voiced, blah blah blah, like whatever. But there's something about being in the moment yourself and just reading it yourself and really like hunkering down and focusing and really just letting your mind paint a picture. Now, obviously, the artwork in Beyond the Reverie is fantastic, but just being able to, like, you know, put it all together in your noggin with the help of the art and the animations, you know what I mean? It's really fucking good, dude. Super goddamn good. One down. 3 to go. Let's catch up. What's happening, everybody? I hope you're doing great. Fool, Mers, thank you guys very much for the subs. I apologize for, you know, sorry, not sorry, just being locked in. Thank you very, very much for those. I need to catch up so I can play this game. Dang you, backlog. Yeah, shake that fist. Fool, how are you doing? Nick, good to see you, bud. The Hairy Monk, what's up, bud? This Friday, I will join you all on my first Trails experience. I can't wait. It should be fire. Dude, I bet you it will be fire. I can't wait, man. I cannot wait. Also need a small idea. I could send you that one Daybreak song we can hear in the third part of Beyond the Reverie and have that on in the background. That's a good idea. I do have... I made a nice thumbnail that I think that we're gonna use when we upload to YouTube. It's subtle, but beautiful. All right, Daft, what's up, my guy? But no, please, I want to see the thumbnail as well. Pretty please. Moss, good evening. I like being able to think while reading without distractions. It's great in the right situations, for sure. This is like honestly one of the only times that I can really like focus. Like I've talked about it before, and it's something I have my first physical in easily a decade, without exaggeration, coming up in October. And I'm also going to talk to my primary about like who I would talk to about what I feel could be or is a like an ADD or an ADHD or something that I deal with, because it's always been, I have this inability to just sit there and focus. Like my dad would always read, loved to read. And I remember vividly, I don't remember how old I was, but he was like, when you find a good book, he goes, you just disconnect. He goes, you sit down, you're in a nice quiet room, and you lock in. And for me, I can't do that. If it's quiet, my brain is having conversations with itself. You know what I mean? Like, I can't stay focused. Doing this, or just reading dialogue for characters itself, is like that time where I can, like that, I have the ability to lock in. And it's great, man. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because it's in a different medium than just like sitting there with a book, but you know, that's where we're at. Dude, Trails Wave, I got you. And it's always right-handed. You know what? Part of me kind of hopes that it always stays just right-handed. Jose! Yeah, dog, no spoilers whatsoever. So, I mean, we'll go over this tomorrow night. We'll go over this when we start on Friday as well for launch. There's going to be a pinned message. It's just going to be short and sweet. No spoilers, no exceptions, or something of the sort. And I know we run a really tight ship around here, and I understand the hype that surrounds new releases, not only of Trails, but for any game for that matter. I want to go at it as blind as possible, as we've done throughout this entire playthrough. So I will repeat it tomorrow, Friday, probably throughout our playthrough. If anything gets deleted in chat, please, I don't want you to take it personally. It is not done out of spite or malice. There is no venom behind it. It is just something because obviously I engage with chat. I don't want to see anything, because even if it does get deleted and you can't see it, I can still see it on my end. It's just got to strike through it. So I have to like avert my eyes. So yeah, Monk, I will not be playing the demo. There's not one on PC yet, just like what Dan said. Shadow King, be careful, videos are already posted on YouTube. You know what? Like, selfishly, all I do is I upload to YouTube and then I usually dip. Like, that's pretty much it. Yeah, if you think, is this a spoiler? Don't say it. Yeah, and you know, not to make life any more difficult for our mods, like, whisper them, message them, you know, clear it with them first. I know it's an extra step and it's, you know, a pain in the nuts, but, or, you know, in our Discord, the stream spoiler section, you guys can go nuts talking about stuff there. You can even clear it there with them, you know, because I don't go in there, you know what I mean? You guys could talk all the shit about me in the entire universe and I have no idea. I don't go in there. Which image were you talking about for thumbnails? There's here, I think I have it. Let me just DM it to you. Because I thought I had downloaded it. Maybe I didn't. Hang on, we'll do it right quick. Shadow King, but I'm just saying if you guys did, I wouldn't know. I would be no worse for wear, right? There it is. Yeah, so I've got one. Yeah, let me just download it real quick, Dan, and I'll let me shoot it off to you in Discord right quick. Do-do-do. So with a stock image that Phil had sent me, I altered it and I made it my own. So I feel like it's real simple, but it's also kind of elegant. Philly! What's up, big dog? Just hope the English patch is available promptly. Yeah, promptly at 1. I remember we had a bit of a, I don't know, a bit of a snag at launch for Reverie. Yes, Phil, it's one of the ones we made for sure. YouTube is both great and bad. I love relaxing in bed watching past VODs of streamers and other videos, but since a lot of my stuff is Trails East related, YouTube gives me recommended vids and sometimes they are spoilery, so it's a tough minefield. It sure is. And I don't know if I've done this, and I don't know if it's even really a thing. I feel like I have muted or told YouTube, like, stop recommending me anything Trails related. Hefe, what's up, my man? Got the Cold Steel Randomizer to work, needs to do more testing? Get after it, dude. Hell yeah. I hope you're having a great day, bud. Is it wrong? I think it's great. It's later release on PC because I'm working that. No, it's not wrong at all. Not at all. Vacation is always a great time. Dude, and like, shame on me and my lousy memory for not remembering it, I guess, obviously. Mrs. Neo's on vacation next week, and her work, as of yesterday, just decided to, like, knee-jerk give them Friday off, so she's off tomorrow, Friday, and then all next week. Go back to work, like, the following Monday. I was like, what? I was like, I want that, dude. If you keep telling YouTube not interested for Trails videos, you can kind of train it. Yeah, she's got a great break, dude. I'm most certainly envious. For sure. Yeah, fool. Tell me about it, dude. Big time same. Big same. So I assume weekend is no streams. Yes. I'm as excited and as hype as I am, and I know we could probably just go straight out. And I'm not saying that I would become burnt out on the game. I would just get burnt out on life. You know what I mean? Like, it's busy. I got stuff to do. And I know I get, I get excited. I get ahead of myself and I go, you know what, man? Like, we'll be on Sunday or something like that. And then Sunday rolls around and I'm beat or something happens and it never happens. So yeah, we're going to be our regularly scheduled times, with the exception of like launch day this Friday, where we're not starting till 1 p.m. We're going to go from 1 p.m. till probably 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern. We're going to take our break. Then we'll come back around 9 p.m., usual starting time any other day of the week. And we'll go from like 9 to, roughly midnight. But other than that, it'll still be Monday through Thursday, starting around, with the hype, I will say anywhere between 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern. And we'll go till midnight or later, I don't know, but, again, between work, life, the whole shebang, anything can happen, so we're gonna keep it at 10 and 2, you know what I mean? We're going down the road. Also, tomorrow night, we'll be doing a reading of Beyond the Reverie. Bingo. There we are. So if you guys want more Reverie, there you are. Oh, yo, Mers, and look, man, I can't stress this enough. Everybody, and I mean everybody, has their own shit going on. I never expect anybody to be here. It is welcomed, it is appreciated, it is something I'm incredibly thankful for. And I think we just kind of do it inadvertently, like we'll apologize to people, like, sorry I couldn't be at a stream, or sorry, like, you have nothing to apologize for, man. Everybody else has got their own stuff going on. You have a life, they have a life, he has a life, she has a life, like, everybody's got their own things going on. And then you insert time zones, and it's the blur. Go until the eyes bleed. That's probably the game plan, bro. That's probably not out of the realm of possibility, but we'll see. Oh, for sure, Daft. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm an avid lurker. You know what I mean? Like, I just like to sit there and enjoy the experience. Sometimes say hello, sometimes not say hello. But I like to just be there and enjoy things how I want to enjoy it. And I always encourage everybody to do just the same if they are here, Oh, okay, let me peep that one right quick. Bro, that one? Dog, I don't know who she is, but I am smitten. That's Elaine, isn't it? I think that's her name. I'm not positive, and I don't want confirmation, but I might either be in love with this one or the one that we just met in another Hot Springs Paradise. It literally could be love. It could be. There is a small to large chance it could be love. No, not move aside, Vita. Come on now. No. What is love? Yeah, I guess we could go the harem route, I suppose. No, Vita is my waifu. Sarah is my soulmate. And then whoever these two are, just on looks alone, like, I'm just smitten by them. I have no idea who the hell they are. I just want to know them better. Baby, don't hurt me. I was thinking Pantera. You take this love, fist, love, hate, love, scar. A bit more sadistic, but it's still love for sure. Trails. Vita will always be there. Okay, let me hydrate uno mas. I don't know how we're doing on time, but yeah, like I said, I wanted to catch up with all of you. I wanted to say hello and just let you all know that yes, I am intentionally ignoring you, but it's not because I don't love you. All right? I need my brain to mouth. I need to like stay focused on words, because even though English is my native tongue, I screw it up often, and I'm trying my best not to do it. Lothars, I am well, brother. How are you and the fam? So now we'll start part 2, an unconventional student. Yeah, words are super hard, man. April, year 1208 of the Septian calendar. Aramis Academy is a famous educational institution in the Calvardian capital of Edith. The name derives from an artist central to Calvard's democratic revolution 100 years ago. This was also reflected in its goal for nurturing new talent and helping to forge a brighter future for a new republic. The academies placed great value on traditional education, of course, but it also encouraged the perspectives of new cultures and values, attracting many an independent mind from across Emuria. It was a storied place of learning that reflected the Republic's views as a whole. This story, for its part, begins not long after the springtime festival held yearly to welcome the new student body. It was just another morning at the academy, countless students shuffling through its grounds, when one of them in particular happened to draw an unusual amount of attention. It just locked into place. It just okay. I remember who the student is, I think. The young lady had long, soft violet hair crowned with a black ribbon. Thanks, Brain. Appreciate you. Her figure had been cut very respectably as she matured into a young woman of 17 years, and yet her face still held traces of girlhood days bygone. The beauty she was, she never failed to turn inquisitive heads as she strolled along. There she is. Her name was Wren Bright. And I love that she took the surname Bright still. Just another, sidebar. I love that. She was a second-year student from Jeunesse Royal Academy in Le Bourle, now studying at Aramis as part of an exchange program. She had only just arrived in the spring. Wren's goal in attending was not to further her education. She had been considered highly gifted since she was a child, having already earned several doctorates in years past, and there was little more than a new academy could reasonably teach her. Her goal in reality was to use it as a front to operate freely in Calvard. It was hard to find one better than being a student. She already found the role relatively foolproof during her time at Jeunesse. Even if there were limits to how much a student could get away with, society as a whole was soft on school children. To move freely would also require drawing as little attention as possible. She aimed to conduct herself modestly as an elegant young lady who wished to remain unseen should during her time at Aramis. There was just one very big problem with this plan. Good morning, Miss Bright. Isn't she just gorgeous? Look, I see her. She's so beautiful, and everyone says she's just as smart, too. All she had to do was walk down the hall to be showered with greetings and whispers of envy and admiration. Her looks alone were already enough to make her the talk of the school, but after one of the teachers let slip that she received a perfect score on her entrance exam, there was suddenly not a single person who didn't know her name. The other students cared not how much she wanted to avoid drawing attention. She was getting it whether she liked it or not. Naturally, not everyone was pleased with the booming popularity this new transfer student had attained in less than a month. While most were busy fawning over Wren's arrival that morning, another group watched the charade unfold from the shadows, echoing audible tuts of displeasure. Wren had yet to be enrolled in any clubs, so as soon as the day's lessons had come to an end, she packed her bags and belongings and stood to leave. A word, if I may, Miss Bright. It was a fellow classmate surrounded by a small faction of students clearly loyal to their king bee. Certainly. Though instinct told her this was not going to be a conversation she wanted to have, she made an effort to pretend otherwise. She would not be provoked into behaving as anything but a mature, modest young lady. I've been wanting to get to know you better for some time now, you see, so I was wondering if you might join me for dinner this evening. The boy, Ronald Griffith, presented a gentlemanly smile. Ren was very much used to being asked out like this, and never once did she accept. She always made up some excuse to turn them down. Today would be no different. "I'm ever so sorry, but I'm afraid I have something urgent to take care of after school today. Some other time, perhaps." This was usually enough to get them to give up, but Ronald was a persistent one. "Well, that won't do. I have something very important to discuss with you, and I've already booked us a table at a very fine restaurant so we could discuss in detail. Is there really no way your business can wait?" There was something ominous about his smile. Ren couldn't help but be curious what he was thinking. "I'm afraid it can't. I'm so sorry after you've gone out of your way to prepare ahead of time. Still, I could spare a little time now, so I'd be happy to talk here if that's all right." "So, not tonight then? A pity." Ronald's tone read one less of genuine sadness and more irritation that things were not going according to plan. Well aware that he let slip his true feelings on the matter, he quickly composed himself and smiled. "Now is better than ever, I suppose. This does concern everyone in the room, so perhaps it's all for the better said here." To this, Ren glanced around the room, noticing that only she, Ronald, and his lackeys were all who remained. Most were likely on their way home or in their respective clubs. While some would have ordinarily been in the classroom at this hour, she was certain none wanted anything to do with Ronald and his group. He took a step towards her, then began to speak. "I'm well aware, Miss Bright, that you have come all the way from distant Liberl to be here. It's not unusual for students to transfer from afar for family reasons. But I hear in your case you came to Calvert just to learn in these hallowed halls. I cannot help but deeply admire your spirit and thirst for knowledge. Pure theatrics, this one. At the same time, I worry about you. Brilliant you may be, but living alone in a far-off land must be a terribly lonely and challenging affair. We all need someone to depend on in our lives, and that would be especially so in your situation. So if you don't mind me saying so, Miss Bright, I believe you're in need of someone to look after you, to protect you." At last, he shut up, giving Ren a chance to respond. She scrutinized him closely. "In short, you'd like for me to join your circle of friends, correct?" Ronald's smarmy smile broadened. His father was a senator in the Republic's parliament, meaning he held a significant amount of political power. His son used this to his full advantage. Ever since joining the academy, Ronald had used his father's name to form a faction of sorts among the students, forcibly building his reputation until he was the leading candidate for student council president in the election stage in half a month's time. His goal, Ren assumed, was to bring the hottest talk of the academy into his faction to further secure his chance of victory. "I think you'll find that joining us would help you feel much more secure and at home here. Or perhaps you don't yet appreciate just how much of a difference having someone like me backing you would make on the life of an exchange student." "True," she mused inwardly. Being in a group of high school standing would make it in high social standing would make it easier for her to gather information. If she could leverage his father's connections to build more of her own, that would pay itself in dividends in the days to come. The pompous boy had no way of knowing the actual circumstances that brought her to Aramis, but his proposal was, in fact, very beneficial to her. She returned his smile with a modest one of her own as she answered, "You're kind to think so much of me, but I'm afraid I'll have to decline." Clear, unambiguous rejection. Ronald's lips were still curled into a smile, but he could not hide the twitch in his brow, nor could his lackeys hide their shock. They had, by all accounts, expected her to answer the opposite. "Are you sure you won't reconsider, Miss Bright? Surely someone as brilliant as yourself can see why accepting my offer would be in your best interest. I fear if you don't know, you may, well, come to regret it." The last words were a hair slower and deliberate to intimidate her. Ren, of course, was never going to fall for it. "I'll admit, it is a tempting proposal. tempting enough to inspire one to consider helping a certain someone win the student council election. If only that someone weren't you. What did you just say? Excuse me. The sudden taunt caught him completely off guard, resulting in a flare of irritation escaping him. Ren, for her part, was unruffled by the change. I imagine you don't need me to explain why, but I will to be sure. I've been very aware that the threatening glares I always attract on the way to school every morning have been coming from all of you. They've been a constant in my life ever since just before the festival. All were flabbergasted by the statement, their silence confirming what she said to be true, she continued. Now, you have every right to regard me with caution. I'm well aware of how much I stand out despite my best efforts. Taking potential threats under your own wing is strategically sound move, too. However, that your target was so easily able to see through your scheme shows everyone here just how inept you really are. I have better things to do than assist someone so incompetent and small-minded. With a shrug and a sigh in a somewhat dramatic fashion, Ren stood before Ronald, his shoulders trembling from rage. Good day to you all. Ren gave a courteous nod of acknowledgement before leaving the room, paying no mind to the wide eyes and open slack jaws she left behind. She's such a savage, dude. So Agate ended up getting pretty beat up from another one of Mom's crazy jobs she threw at him. We did get some good data out of it, but ouch. Your mom is always so funny. That night in the dormitory, Ren and Tita were engrossed in deep conversation through their laptops. It's the Bean! But it's always the same old with all of you. I'm surprised there's anything of Agate left with how often you tell me she has him nearly facing death. You two are in a rut. I know something that could spice things up. Maybe try adding a little romance to the mix, like a couple of bright-eyed lovebirds we know. But we have agreed to go somewhere next week, so we're not in a complete rut. Okay. I know we had talked about it, and I'm not trying to get into the weeds here too much. I guess that's more or less the confirmation of the more romantic relationship between Tita and Agate. I had always viewed it as more a platonic, like a brother-sister vibe, but this, I guess, without so much as saying so, pretty much confirms it. Just my opinion. Please, put away your pitchforks and torches. Well, isn't that something? The stairs to adulthood await you, my dear friend. Ren? Tita graduated from the branch campus in Erebonia just as Ren left for Calvard, leaving them no time to spend with one another in person. That wasn't ideal, of course, but from a hint of sadness came the habit of talking like this once a week so they could stay in each other's lives. They discussed anything from their new lives and environments to the fruits of their research, occasionally stumbling into a serious topical matter or two along the way. It sounds like a legal confrontation between the Verne Company and the Epstein Foundation is inevitable at this point. I know, I can't believe this is really happening. Both frowned at their screens. A recent development concerning the Calvardian industrial giant Verne Company had become a key source of concern for them of late. It began soon after Crossbell returned to normalcy after the Supreme Leader's takeover the previous year. Professor Erica Russell approached the Verne Company to propose that they join the West Sumerian Technology Union that she had been hard at work forming. And to no one's surprise, they refused. But before Erica and the rest of the engineers involved could even finish getting ready to go and change Verne's mind, something happened to make the union the least of anyone's priorities. Where's Dan? Where's old Dan Russell? The independent development of a new generation of orbments, and their generation's long partner in this subset of technology, the Epstein Foundation, would not be a collaborator. The latter had been key supporters of Zemuria's orbment development, the orbital technology in general, since their very inception. Battle orbments were no exception to this. The Foundation had known their way around them since the very first model, drafting the incredible concept that had been used as a base ever since. Even the Reinford Company before the Battle of Jormungand had not thought to develop their Arcus models on their own, instead favoring to develop them in partnership with the Storied Institute. The announcement was, quite simply, unprecedented, and it sent shockwaves through the industry. The Epstein Foundation was also less than pleased about being cast aside in this manner. While there were certainly legal concerns regarding who owned the patent to this technology, the greater concern was that their stable position in the industry as a whole was now becoming unstable. They initially responded by attempting to resolve this through peaceful means, but when those attempts proved fruitless, it was reported that they were preparing for what could only be an ugly international legal dispute. I'd say Verne has the upper half if this ever makes it to court. Unlike their previous Ramda orbments, this 6th generation is designed to set a whole new standard. All of its main features are packed with new tech, with some new features still being kept under wraps. I wonder what those are. What could they be trying to develop that's important enough to ruin their relationship with the Foundation? Though I have heard about the government telling the Verne Company to focus more on weapons development. I have too. It sounds like they're planning to significantly revamp the military's weaponry. The official story is that they're planning on slimming the military down, but if they're pairing that with the latest in weapons development, then they're still just as powerful, maybe more so. As part of the war ceasefire agreement, Erebonia was required to downsize their military, bringing it more in line with that of Calvard's. Yet, if the Republic were to expand the capabilities of its military, this recently forced equilibrium in superpowers would quickly be broken. Whatever may be true, I've got a lot of questions I need answers to. Maybe it would be worth visiting the Verne Company's headquarters in Basel at some point. You haven't learned anything more about where Professor Hamilton is at the moment, right? Nothing new or concrete, at least. It sounds like she's continuing her research eastward, but I haven't heard anything more specific than that. Mom and Grandpa haven't had any luck in contacting her either. I'm not surprised that area isn't very well connected, but it's still unfortunate. She's a lot more responsible than Professor Schmidt, so having her on our side would help a lot. Tita could only laugh. Yeah, there's a lot of worrying stories going around now about PMCs and stuff like that. It makes me wonder if none of this would even be happening if she was still acting as an advisor for the Verne Company. The deeper into the conversation they went, the more Tita could feel her spirits sinking. The political climate in Western Zemuria was unusually stable at the moment, with its nations basking in prosperity. But she could not shake off the feeling that this peace was built over rotting wood, and that it could all come crashing down with but the slightest provocation. This was becoming especially true in the tech world, as it had undergone rapid growth in recent years compared to other fields, so rapid in fact, that no base could possibly sustain its sudden weight without cracks beginning to form. Try not to dwell too much on the worst case scenario, Tita. This peace might rest on a knife's edge, but there's still plenty we can do to preserve it. That's why I'm here right now, and that's also why you're working so hard too. We could find a million problems in the world if we wanted, but pessimism isn't going to make them go away, right? The words filled Tita with the right amount of comfort she needed in that precise moment. Yeah, I guess you're right. Thanks, Ren. They continued on, losing track of time as they talked well into the night. Before they knew it, the clock had struck 12. Well, it's getting really late, so I should probably be going. I'll talk to you soon, okay? All right. Good night, Tita. Night. Oh! Tita suddenly remembered something. The exclamation stopped Ren just as she was about to end the call. Estelle and Joshua told me to ask if you're doing okay in school. Those two always worry too much. You'd think I wasn't talking to them too. She couldn't help but remember her interaction with Ronald after class, but Ren quickly drove the thought from her mind. It wasn't worth dredging up. Tell them they can rest easy, everything is fine. Good, they wanted me to let them know if you were being bullied so they could fly over and help. Like, look, no disrespect. I get it, it's that familial bond between the three of them. I'm pretty sure Ren would have it handled. Easy peasy. Ren could only sigh. Honestly, do they think I can't keep myself safe from a few schoolyard bullies? Actually, they said that they were more worried about what you do to them than what they do to you. There it is. At her friend's silence, Tita couldn't help but burst out laughing. I worry about you too, obviously, but they're probably right. How awful of you. Even if that were to happen to me, I wouldn't do half of what you're imagining. Not anymore, anyway. See, it's saying that kind of thing that makes people worry. I'm a lady now. I need the magnanimity to forgive the transgressions of others. I'm also trying to do what I can to avoid standing out too much at school. You can try, but I think that's always been a lost cause. Anyway, now I'm really going to go before anything else. Say hi to Zin for me if you run into him. I'm planning to go and see him when everything calms down here, so will do. I've been meaning to go and see someone else I've been indebted to in the past too. By the time the two of them had finished talking and ended the call, one day had given way to the next. The morning dawned, yet another day of school. However, just as she left her classroom in the main building at the start of lunch and went to descend the staircase, she felt someone suddenly draw near her from behind. Reflexively, she dodged out of the way. A female student then entered her field of vision. She had lost her balance, her expression a mix of fear and surprise. She passed through the spot Ren had been moments before, but her momentum showed no sign of fading. If someone didn't stop her, she was going to start tumbling down the stairs. Ren was quick to grab her and pull her close. She supported the girl's weight with one arm with all the grace of someone taking part in a ballroom dance, saving her from falling. Excuse me. Several students happened to witness the event unfold and could not help but elicit gasps of admiration. Noticing that the girl's eyes were still unfocused, Ren gently addressed her. Are you all right? You aren't hurt, are you? Finally realizing the situation she was in, the girl whose face had become quite red quickly straightened her posture in a fluster. Yes, I'm okay. You're Ren Bright from the next class over, aren't you? Thank you so much for helping me. You're very welcome. But I would have to caution you from losing your composure like that right next to a staircase. Do you have some really urgent business to take care of? The girl first frowned in response, then paused to think, then answered. Nothing I can think of. It's weird, but even though it was probably my imagination, it felt like someone had pushed me from behind. Obviously no one here would do that, so I must have just bumped into someone by accident. She thanked her rescuer again before disappearing into the distance. The situation she had deemed her imagination, however, lingered in Ren's mind. If I hadn't sensed something was amiss, both of us would have fallen down the stairs. We could have been badly hurt. Was it really just a coincidence, or was it a deliberate action by someone who wants to hurt me? If it was the latter, she didn't have anything to support this theory, but with it came a familiar sensation, the feeling of malicious stares focusing on her from the shadows. It took surprisingly little time for her suspicions to gain evidence. After finishing gym class the next day, Ren made for the classroom and began preparing for the next lesson. As she did, she immediately noticed something was amiss. All of her textbooks had been glued shut with an excessive amount of adhesive. Try as she did to open them, it was a lost cause to get to even a single page. It was an obvious attempt to harass her. The culprits behind the act were equally obvious. Not far from where Wren was sitting, Ronald Griffith with his lackeys, whom she so memorably turned away 2 days prior, were snickering to themselves, their eyes mockingly focused on Wren all the while. They're not even interested in hiding what they're like anymore. I'm sure at this point they want me to know who did it, to intimidate me. This latest development also confirmed in her mind that they were responsible for trying to push her down the stairs the day before. What a pitiful sight they were. Because she refused to join their group, her existence was, in their eyes, now nothing more than a hindrance to Ronald's campaign for student council president. They would stop at nothing to either break her spirit and force her to join, or shame her into lowering her popularity among the student body. It didn't matter what Wren had no interest in taking part in the election. After further inspecting the state of her textbooks, Wren's expression grew difficult to read. I think I can make them usable again, but not in what little time I have left before class. The bell soon chimed to signal the start of her lesson. Wren left her textbooks out on top of her desk, making no effort to open them throughout. Her instructor was, of course, less than pleased about this perceived slight against them, picking her to answer a question as an attempt to chide her poor behavior. Miss Bright, please read the next paragraph aloud for us. Ronald and his friends let out a series of pleased giggles at this, their minds delighting at the thought of a flustered Wren being told off and humiliated in front of the entire class. But what transpired in reality played out very differently from their fantasies. Without missing a beat, Wren did exactly as she was told, reciting the selected paragraph she had been asked to read word for word, and all while her textbook remained closed. Did you memorize the entire book? Even the instructor could not hide their surprise. But of course, as a student of Aramis Academy, I would never dare to compromise in preparing for my lessons. Wren responded with such grace that she, of course, drew in more sighs and coos of admiration from both her instructor and peers alike. It was only Ronald and his posse who groaned with sullen expressions. The next incident came on Wren's way to school the next morning. She entered the school gates with the horde of other students and was just about to step into the building when she noticed a foul smell coming from above her. She looked upward, noticing a portion of the fencing surrounding the building's rooftop was falling directly above her. Other students noticed at the same time, letting out screams of horror and worries they could do nothing about it. I could get out of the way easily if I wanted, but the fencing was over 2 ards in length. She could escape unharmed, but the other students around her would likely not. That was a risk she was unwilling to take. Grasping the battle ornament hidden in her bag, she cried out, "Airstrike!" A sphere of wind formed in response to her incantation, flying upward at high speeds. She carefully controlled its power so that instead of sending the fence flying, it simply canceled out its momentum instead, allowing her to hop and catch it with ease. This was no accident. The smell makes it obvious. It was the distinct scent of a liquid extracted from a certain plant monster. One of its properties was to imitate the natural corrosion of metal, resulting in its application in certain solvents. This made the fence falling a deliberate action the perpetrator had been trying to disguise as an accident. And with Wren having been the target of several malicious acts already, the culprit was clear. Again, she could feel the presence of those familiar hateful stares pouring into her from the shadows. But again as well, they were not the only ones with eyes on her. Whoa! That was awesome! Did you see that? Is there anything she can't do? Wren's quiet meditation was disrupted by a multitude of cheers and applause from all around her. As if she were a performer just about to leave the stage, she gave an elegant bow in response. This would not be the last time she endured harassment from Ronald's group, but each and every time they thought they bested her, she would handle herself with exemplary skill, their efforts only serving to make her more popular. The state of affairs continued for several more days before a seemingly out of patience Ronald summoned Ren behind the school building after lessons were over for the day. He stood oppressively before her, his lackeys behind him, with the composure he attempted to feign before now replaced by a plain, vile anger. Let me give it to you straight, Ren Bright. You are an eyesore. Even that gentlemanly air he impersonated before was gone. Really? Well, that's not a very polite thing to say to a classmate. Don't try to act cute and innocent. I've put too much damn time and mirror into building my position up at this academy. But who's always the center of attention instead? It's you. It's always you. It's like you're deliberately trying to sabotage my chances of success, and that's the last thing I can afford right now. The more livid Ronald became, the more unruffled Ren was in turn. You're only sabotaging yourself by setting me up to succeed over and over again. You are aware of that, aren't you? Had she not been forced to defend herself against him over and over again, she would not have received nearly as much attention. This being pointed out caused Ronald to return an audible tut of frustration. Who cares about how it happens? The point is, this has gone on long enough, so I'm going to have to ask you to step off the stage for a while. What do you mean? Ronald seemed to present some of his initial cool from when they first talked as he answered. Oh, I mean something very simple. You just won't come to school until the election is over. And if I refuse? To this he raised a hand, and in response, his lackeys stepped forward to surround her. The boys were unusually well built for their age, showing off their hulking forms in hopes of intimidating her. It's probably B12 injections. Refusing is not an option, I'm afraid. If you aren't going to oblige me willingly, we will just have to make it so you can't come to school for a while. His lackeys cracked their knuckles dramatically to clarify their leader's intent. Well, that's not good. I think we both know that would constitute a grave violation of the school rules. Something about her inflection caused him to mistake her commentary as showing a hint of fear, further fueling their desire to dominate the situation. No one's watching a place like this, and even if someone did happen to see, my father is a politician. He can make it go away. If they don't willingly choose to ignore what they saw in deference to my position, that is. Everyone at this academy seems to already know their place, you see. Everyone except you. His smile then was so unpleasant that a sigh escaped Ren. Oh, I think you're the one who doesn't know your place. I don't want to be rough with him after what Tita said, but he needs to be taught a good, hard lesson. Ronald continued on, oblivious to what was running through his apparent victim's mind. Now do as I say. His lackeys drew closer, readying to seize her. I'll keep it mild, but I still want this to hurt for them, just enough to set them on the right track. I don't think Estelle or Joshua would object to that. But just as she was about to act... Stop this at once! A girl's shout could be heard from the direction of the school building. She was, of course, not shouting at Ren. And who are you? Ronald was visibly irritated. Though the girl appeared to be visibly nervous, she continued to stand her ground. I didn't mean to listen in, but I couldn't help but overhear what was happening here. You can't go through with this. What you're doing is wrong. The girl stepped forward till she was directly in front of Ren to protect her from her schoolyard bullies. As she did so, the light revealed sleek, dazzling blonde hair that shimmered much like the sunshine above. Ren recognized her to be a first-year student who lived in the dormitory next to her own. They weren't close to one another. At most, they only exchanged polite greetings with one another as they passed each other in the hall. She always seemed like a quiet, polite young woman with a good upbringing. However, not the type whose eyes would glow with resolve as she put her well-being on the line for someone else's. Ren was surprised by this, as was Ronald, though he was less than impressed. He never fathomed that another student would dare to resist him. One thing he did sense was that her resistance was little more than a brave front. With excitement at the thought of stripping that front bare, he grew a sadistic smile and addressed her. "Is it now? Well, how fortunate for me that I have you to show me the error of my ways." "Ren can wait. You're a first year, I assume? I'm going to need to give you a lesson in just how right and wrong works in our society." Upon his signal, his lackeys shifted to surround their new target over Ren. She began to tremble as danger closed in on her, but still she did not move. "Don't you dare!" This time it was Ren who spoke up. "I'll give you what you want, so don't you dare touch her." But... You sure about that? She wasn't planning on that response, but Ronald was more than happy to have his win in any form. "I'll stay away from school for a while. That's what you want, right? But then you..." "The experience of studying abroad has been rather tiring for me, so maybe I do need some rest." Ren's voice was gentle in an attempt to assuage the kind girl's concerns. Ronald, meanwhile, made no attempt to hide the joy he felt at victory, laughing heartily with all the glee of a spoiled child. "Good, now everyone knows their place here. I see no reason to harm either of you now that I've got what I want. Consider yourselves lucky now that I've decided to let you go." Ronald turned away and made to leave, his lackeys following suit. "Good day to you, then. When we next meet, this school will be all mine." And then he was gone. With only the girls left behind the school building, the younger of the two looked up at her senior, concern welling in her expression. "I really am all right. You're very kind to worry." Ren's smile was one of genuine kindness. From then on, Ren did indeed stop coming to school, citing illness as the official reason behind her absence. The students then gathered in the Academy's auditorium several days later for the long-awaited student council election. Aramis Academy as a whole placed great importance on the autonomy of its students, and as such, the student council exercised an unusual amount of power. It also weighed upon them a massive amount of responsibility, such as being the sole partner for the Academy's festival, a symbol and celebration of spring in the capital. This, however, also led to the position being a status symbol even long after graduation. All of this was why a large number of students put their names forward to become the student council president every year. Yet this year, a great majority of the most promising candidates dropped out under mysterious circumstances, leaving only Ronald and others associated with him on the ballot. I couldn't exactly boast about winning by default. Ronald and his supporters sat in the rest area, chuckling amongst themselves at the whole affair. Perhaps his name wasn't the only one on the ballot, but none of the others had done any certifiable campaigning, meaning his election was positively assured. Eventually, the time came for him to give his speech. It was a compelling one. He played the part of a respectable young gentleman as he delivered it, speaking with that same silver tongue he inherited from his father. There were some moments where he failed to hide his arrogance, but as no one else had prepared a speech to give, this was not the blow to his campaign it otherwise would have been. Now, if you could turn your eyes to the screen he spoke of was at the back of the auditorium. This was a rather notable feature to have in a school building, to have anywhere and was installed several years prior to for use in lectures and to display recreational films. Other nations had yet to indulge in such luxuries, showing just how far ahead Calvert was in its technology. Up until then, students had used it to display photographs during their speeches, but Ronald intended to take it another step further. He wanted to share a promotional video, and not a simple makeshift, self-produced one that might ordinarily be presented by an amateur, but rather a professional work he paid a considerable amount of mira for. Its quality was genuinely impressive. His victory was written in stone, but this, he knew, would cement it that much more. Convinced this would serve as the perfect beginning to his ascension to the top of the social hierarchy, he started the video. The musical number it played was rousing. Fitting what followed then was Ronald appearing on screen. "So, how much mira do you want for supporting me? I can make it worth your while." What? The video playing before them was not the one intended. Rather than an inspiration show of what he could bring to the student body, it was a recording of him buying off one of his opponents just days before. A hushed whisper of confusion spread through the auditorium. The next clip played. "If you know what's good for you, you'll withdraw your candidacy right now, or the only thing you'll be president of is a hospital bed." Next was an equally unexpected scene of Ronald intimidating another candidate into withdrawing from the race. As it continued, Ronald realized what was going on. Someone out here had replaced his carefully prepared video with another. The initially hesitant whispers exploded into loud enough murmurs that he had to raise his voice over them in his attempt to quell the situation. This is all a forgery! Someone is attempting to frame me!" But just at that moment, as if waiting for his cries of denial, a girl's voice resounded from the auditorium's entrance. "I'm afraid it is all entirely genuine." Her voice rang out with wonderful clarity, charming all who heard it. She ran her hand through her violet hair and flipped it back as she talked and walked slowly toward the stage. So good, dude. Bribing potential threats, blackmailing, threatening, even executing violence against others, and many other cases of bullying besides. You are guilty on every single count, Ronald Griffith. Before anyone could fully understand what was happening, this student was on the stage and staring Ronald down. All eyes were fixed upon this elegant figure. Indeed, without any effort at all, she had the air of a protagonist from some epic tale making her long-awaited appearance. "Damn it, Ren Bright, must you insist on getting in my way at every turn?" He growled through a sheet of sheer anger. In contrast, the recently absent Ren responded with brilliant composure. "You are the one getting in the way of the fair running of this important election. Your countless crimes have been made a mockery of the entire process." Ren then turned from Ronald to the rest of the student body as she continued to list his crimes alongside the still-running video. Some elicited frowns, others sympathy, others complete silence. But by the time she was finished, all were united in a single overpowering emotion: anger. It brings me no joy to say this about a fellow student, but I'm afraid it must be said. Ronald Griffith, you do not deserve to even attend this prestigious academy, much less be the president of its student council. Similar censure from other students followed in rapid succession. "Yeah, she's right. Stop ruining our academy. You've gone too far." Ren's accusation wasn't the only reason for their anger. The students of Aramis had long loathed Ronald's oppressive behavior. They only hadn't spoke out before because they were afraid of his father's power. Now that they realized he could be stopped, their anger had reached an explosive boiling point. Ronald suddenly found himself at the center of a torrent of abuse. He looked to his lackeys for support, but even they refused to meet his gaze. It then dawned on him just how fragile all he thought he built was. Rage gave way to an instant, deep despair, and casting a glare of pure hatred toward Ren, Ronald hurriedly sprinted out of the auditorium. Only when he was completely out of sight did the air erupt with cheers of joy. In the end, addressing the aftermath of the election took long enough that by the time she left for the gates, it was already evening. Yet even with how late it was, instead of walking her usual route home, she stepped off the path to enter an entirely unoccupied park. How does this work? No one is going to interrupt us here, so how about you come on out? In response to her words, Ronald emerged before her for the first time since he ran away earlier in the day, and with 10 or so companions in tow. These men weren't his usual lackeys, but instead vicious figures with dark expressions and gaudy clothing. They were clearly not students of the academy. More than likely, they belonged to some local gang. You don't keep very good company outside of school now, do you? With how they're dressed up, I assume you must be off to a party or something. I'm going to wipe that smug smirk right off that face for good, Ren Bright. My dazzling future in politics was guaranteed, but now you've gone and ruined everything. What am I supposed to say to my father now? That's your problem, not mine. Or are you so small a man that you can't own up to the consequences of your own mistakes? Not a second passed between his outburst and the manner in which she snapped back, causing his temper to grow twice as vile. That's it! I don't care what it takes. You are going to pay for thinking you could cross me and get away with it. Have at her. There won't be any consequences for going too far. My father will see to that. The men sprung into motion upon Ronald's signal, but what followed made them doubt their eyes. Badass. Ronald could not understand what just unfolded before him. His eyes relayed the information well enough, but his mind rejected it completely. The second after he ordered his new lackeys to attack, Ren had produced a monstrously sized black and gold scythe from thin air. This in itself was beyond comprehension, but it wasn't the last thing to be so. The scene was like a cat toying with a powerless, cornered mouse, except in this shocking case, Ren was the cat, and his men were the mice. They surrounded her at first, and yet all it took was a single swing of her conjured weapon to cause most of them to collapse to the ground. In less than 10 seconds, their confidence had crumbled with their bodies. The mice made to scurry as fast as they could, but the cat gleefully gave chase. There were even moments where she let a few think they had gotten away, only for her to immediately close the gap between them. It was only after she was bored that she would knock them unconscious like the rest. Then she would seek delight in her next hunt. Like heavy sacks of potatoes, the men fell one by one, until only Ren and Ronald were left. This can't be happening. The young man was still struggling to come to terms with what he had just witnessed, as Ren stretched her limbs like a bored child still gearing up to play. Amateurs, every last one of them. I thought I could at least have a little fun. Oh, but don't you worry, I didn't actually slaughter them. She turned her gaze from the spectacle of her own creation to Ronald. It's such a, it's such a rad picture, dude. Would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment, perhaps, Ronald? Ronald twitched in fear at the mention of his name. In this moment, she was now nothing more than a beast in human skin. Stay away from me! My father's in Parliament, you know! Try anything on me and you'll regret it! Her response was an expression of pure pity before tossing what appeared to be a magazine at his feet. It's one of today's tabloids. You might find its contents relevant. What? At first, he was baffled by this shift, but the second he peeked at the cover, his face went pale. Representative Griffith suspected of bribery and connections to organized crime, read the headline in giant, punchy lettering. There's a whole special feature on Your Dearest Daddy, complete with evidence. It mentions that the CID is going to be conducting an investigation as well, so this may be the last day you can say he's in Parliament. My condolences. No. No! So visceral was his shock at the news that the simple word was all he could muster. Even then, Ren wasn't finished. Such a good picture. So now that he's been removed from the equation, I'll ask again, would you be open to giving me a little more entertainment? She edged closer and closer, scythe in hand, and a sadistic smile lacing her lips. Ronald tried to retreat in fear before tripping over a rock and falling hopelessly on his backside. All he could do was watch her as though she were the Grim Reaper, tears and snot streaming down his face. Be a doll and play with me, then you'll understand why they used to call me the Angel of Slaughter. She raised her scythe above her head and ready to swing it downward before realizing what she said. Oops. A grown woman wouldn't play with dolls, though, would she? And here I thought I could better control my childish glee. She covered her mouth with her free hand, blushing with feminine modesty at her slip-up. None of this was behavior befitting the proper lady she wanted to reflect. After composing herself, she turned her attention back to her prey, only to see he was already unconscious. Finished? As she left the park, a calm young man called out to her. I certainly am. Ren met eyes with a brown-skinned young man leaning covertly against one of the trees. It was safe to assume he had witnessed the entire affair unfold. He glanced inside the park for a brief moment before speaking with slight but genuine admiration. You really are something. In what way? In every way. Even if I was more struck by the hacking abilities of the famous Kitty than the combat prowess of the infamous Angel of Slaughter. Still hard to believe you managed to find dirt on his bigwig dad that easily. Ren's response was matter of fact, showing no sign his praise had gone to her head. Most people just aren't as cautious about cybersecurity as they ought to be. Understandable with how new most are to it. Of course, it isn't nearly as easy as this was when you were dealing with the leading corporations and politicians at the top of the food chain. You made it sound like you've tried before. Maybe I have. Ren's smile was both cryptic and darling. I've been more impressed with you. You were quick to write a piece that's scathing while also finding me exactly the proof I needed. I'm glad Grace introduced us. Just doing my job. The man's name was Dingo, and he was a professional reporter for a tabloid. He was extremely capable at his job, very well connected, and held a reputation for never shying away from danger. After being introduced to one another by Grace Lynn, he and Ren made a deal with one another just a few days prior. The terms were simple. Dingo would provide Ren with proof of Ronald's misdemeanors, and Ren would use her hacking abilities to provide evidence of his father's crimes. Both were now reaping the rewards of the other's success. Though I'll admit that I did get some help from a friend. He was none too pleased about being asked to look into a scummy politician's equally scummy son, but he pulled through. Oh? You just have all kinds of connections, don't you? She did sense someone other than Dingo was acting on her behalf while she was off school, but she wasn't sure who that someone was. This curious sensation regarding their identity remained as she continued the conversation. You know, I'm surprised you didn't meet with any resistance in running that story. That just goes to show how big a fan the government was of Griffith. They left him alone because he didn't actively oppose the current president's party, but from the CID's perspective, this chance to take him down was about as good as it was going to get. That does sound like something Miss Taito Master over there would do. I can't say I like the feeling of being used by her, but oh well. Dingo then made a curious observation. I have to wonder why you went to such lengths to get rid of a small fry like him. He really bother you that much? Ren glanced briefly at Ronald, still collapsed on the ground of the park, before shrugging her shoulders dismissively. Not in the least. I didn't intend for this to go as far as it did either. I only wanted to teach him enough of a lesson so he'd leave me alone, but... It was then the younger student who tried to save her came to mind. I think the students deserve a much better student council president than him. She then let out a titter that was most refined. As Ren expected, the allegations led Ronald's father to resign from Parliament while he resigned from Aramis Academy. The group of students who exerted power over the student body with his backing vanished overnight as a result, bidding peace to return to the grounds for the first time in a long time. One thing, however, came about from this that Ren had not expected in the least. Here are all the documents relating to next month's budget. The student council's new president accepted the documents from the blonde-haired first year in charge of general affairs, perusing them straight away. After Ronald dashed from the auditorium on the day of the election, most of those in his group who put down their name dropped out in a timely fashion. Voting still took place even then, but once all was said and done, nearly 70% of the votes cast were disqualified. This was because they were all in favor of someone who never had put her name on the ballot, Ren Bright. Aramis Academy was known for how little its staff interfered with the many liberties it gave its students, but this time, the staff was clearly concerned that dissatisfaction with Ronald was going to present dire problems in the future. The teachers then chose to directly negotiate with Ren, and in the face of such fervent demand, she reluctantly accepted the position of student council president. None of her duties posed a challenge to her, but by accepting it, she had completely and utterly failed her initial goal of avoiding attention. I wonder if this is how the Thor's Branch campus's first student council president felt when he was elected. Even I couldn't believe it when Tita told me. All right, it is what it is, I suppose. I'll just have to make use of this as best I can. Sunlight beamed into the student council room. The blonde-haired girl and two of her friends struggled with the new workload they were adjusting to. As Ren sat there, ears open to random talk and occasional grumble, a thought crossed her mind. She had no end of real-world worries, the problems arising from rapid technological advancement, the society's next move, the ominous winds of change blustering over Calvard. But despite all those, she wanted to enjoy her simple time here while she could. Let's say we get this work done so we can celebrate with a tea party, The arrival of spring was now a distant memory, even if summer had yet to come. There was nothing particularly spectacular about this time. It was just another ordinary, beautiful, bright afternoon. An unconventional student. The end. Goddamn, that was better than I remembered, too. Much longer than I remembered as well. That one was a chonky one for sure. That was super good. Grumpy, what's up, my guy? That Dingle guy? Yeah, man. Oh, words. I'm looking forward to seeing Ren as well. And having already referenced Zin, I want to see Zin real bad. How is it? I'll probably download it on my PC after we finish up tonight. Daft, thank you. I'll switch from tea to some water. And you know what? before we start this next one and before we catch up a bit more, I'm gonna go hit the head, so I will BRB. Promise. Watch this. Oh, it didn't work? I forgot I don't have it on this one. That's all right. We'll BRB. All right. It's got style, but feels like the devs didn't know how to do the story. It's got comic book story style, Visual novel talking head style, fully animated style, then third-person character models talking style. Okay, that's a lot to take in. Combat's pretty simple, flashy but simple. Spam normal attacks to fill a gauge to use a special. Swap when enemies get stunned or when they're about to attack, and then use ultimate when different type of gauge is full. Okay, so at least to me, it sounds similar to like Wuthering Waves a little bit. I mentioned this in Jeff's stream when he streamed Beyond the Reverie. Overall, I love the art style and presentation, but during the battle at Reen's section would have been nice for some animation to show off what was going on, but that doesn't take away from the good part of this overall. Now, see, Moss, like I had even referenced it when we just read through Another Hot Springs Paradise. I love just the subtle animations. I love how they just have a still image, and then from time to time during the battle, there were those animations. And I thought, like, that was enough for me personally. I loved it. Probably, but I never played that one. It sounds real similar. Is there a, a guard and a, is there like a guard and a, not dash, I can't think of the other one, evade kind of mechanic as well? Or is it just like swap out to the next character? No guard, basically swap mechanic is guard evade. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna at least give it a try. Have you unlocked doing pulls yet? And have you spent all, I don't know, 100 and some odd that they give you for free 99? Still in the prologue? Okay. Nick, you're playing it too? Right on. I'm glad that you're digging it. I know it's that new. If it's like Star Rail, it's going to be a hot second before they go, hey, got you? Want to pull? Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. They make you, they'll make you work for it. I mean, I think the only, like, the at least for me personally, just to rip off some pulls and like Wuthering Waves, the best thing that they implemented for me, because the story in that was just a whole bunch of gobbledygook. Like, it's just like, whatever. But they let you just skip it, which is perfect. Because I just liked the combat. I just enjoyed the combat loop. That was it. That was it for me. By the way, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, because we've used this this background in Wallpaper Engine before. I have no idea whose dog this is. No clue. It's not ours. That's not Walter. Yeah, it was just all, and you know, like, with all due respect to Star Rail, I know that there's a lot more that they put into the story, but it's still just, for me, just playing it is about the combat loop. That's it. That's it. Like, the combat loop is fun. Rolling for relics and stuff like that, that's fun for me. The story is just completely throwaway for me personally. See, good, and I know it's always going to be different strokes for different folks, so I'm glad that you're digging it. Pod, have a good night, man. Yeah, dude, we're almost there. Friday. I would say tomorrow is only a day away, but we're pulling for Friday, right? We got to get there. But tomorrow night, don't forget, we'll do the raffle for show. That's true. Yeah, you're living in the future. It's my bad. Yeah, so it is Thursday. It's also skippable, so it's nice. All right, cool. But yeah, so also, speaking of the raffle, if you enter ! giveaway at any point in time, it'll drop the link. We're going to be raffling off 2 copies of Trails Through Daybreak. So we're going to rip off 2 winners, and you'll be able to choose a platform of your choice. So if you want digital, you know, I'll just send it to you via Steam. Physical, whether it be Switch, PS4, PS5. If you win, you choose that route. You'll just have to DM me in Discord, give me your information, shipping information. You don't have to give me your full name if you don't want to. I totally understand. You want, you know, a bit of anonymity. That's totally fine. But I'll still need whatever details to get it shipped to you. P.O. Box, whatever you're comfortable with. Each ticket is 500 Mira. Mira is a channel currency that we use for our giveaways through Stream Elements. And they're just naturally accrued like channel points here are on Twitch. So just after time, you'll accrue, I don't remember how much it is, every like 10 minutes, whatever it may be. Your first ticket's free. So you can either enter exclamation point ticket and get your first. You can click the link that Lothar's just dropped or anybody has dropped. Get your first ticket free 99 that way as well. You can have a maximum of 100 tickets, and you have to be in chat tomorrow night. So it's going to be around 10 p.m. Eastern. You got to be in chat. We're going to do it like within the first, I'll say like 10-15 minutes. I understand time zones are a thing. If you don't happen to be here, I'm sorry. You can have a maximum of 100 tickets. Sorry, what did I say? It's my brain, Philly. You can have a max of 100 tickets. Each ticket is 500 Mira. Did I say it was, you can have a max of 10? Because that's not true. Oh, 10 p.m. Yeah. So, I went over this last night real fast. Where Youngblood's gonna see fireworks for the first time tomorrow for the 4th. And the fireworks in the city that I live in, they don't start till like 8:30-ish, closer to 9 maybe, like once it starts getting dark. I don't expect them to last the entire time, so I'm rough estimate gonna shoot for 10 o'clock. Like that'll be the time, because by the time we get home, we're not gonna do shower. It's already gonna be super late. We'll just put them to bed and then we'll come down here. It's only gonna be like, you know, a half an hour, 45-minute stream anyways. We're gonna do the giveaway, and then we're going to watch Look Back to Look Forward, and then the final Grand Master bit at the end of Cold Steel 4. Afterwards. Hey, Jose, thanks for hanging, bro. Have a great night, man. Get some rest. Have a good Thursday, eh? All right, and so now we will move into Forward, Sword in Hand. September year 1207 of the Septian calendar. Oh my god, it's her. I cannot accept. I was not one to mince words. The hulking bear of a veteran bracer, Zin Vathic, could not hide his disappointment, puffing out his bottom lip with a sigh as he stood before me. Not again. You gotta resign yourself to the inevitable one of these days. I had been indebted to this man, who was as capable as he was kind, since my first day in the guild. So she's a bracer. Alright. Truly, I didn't wish to be a source of vexation for him, but the wish alone was not enough. I have neither the experience nor the skill to be worthy of A rank, so I cannot accept your recommendation. Bracers are assigned ranks based on their strength and achievements, with A rank being the highest, on paper at least. Its members are the very face of its beloved organization, and as such, ranks are a metaphorical badge of honor to be worn with pride. So how had I received multiple recommendations for the most prestigious rank in 6 months? I spared no effort in working to hone my craft in the years I'd joined after school, and certainly I wouldn't classify myself as a doe-eyed newcomer, but to have my name among the greats of the guild? Absolutely not. But after turning down my first recommendation, a second one had come from the guild's headquarters in Le Mans. If you ask me, you got both in spades. There's something else making you lead toward a no? Zin's awkward smile told me he had been pressured by headquarters to persuade me. I folded my arms. Setting aside whether you're overestimating me or not, which I believe you are, there is. I would very much like to not stand out any more than I already do. I've been getting awful offers to be a model, to star in films. It's been, frankly, exhausting forcing them to give up. Now, what do you think would happen if I were to accept a promotion? I'll be neck deep in the same mess all over again. Okay, that makes sense. But sorry, you're a 1-2 punch in the beauty and bronze department. Trying to lay low is a lost cause. With the kind of fans you're getting, maybe you should consider the silver screen after all. Who knows? You might walk away with an award from the film festival. Zin's laugh was hearty in contrast to my unmused frown. Much as I respected him, he could do with showing a little more decorum. That's not funny. I understand being the public eye to some extent is inevitable, and I've accepted it, but I'm a bracer, not an entertainer. I wasn't trying to be funny though. You gotta find a way to let off some steam or you're gonna break when you need to put together the most. Happens to the workaholics like you more often than you think. I didn't think I was pushing myself as much as he implied, but I also couldn't deny that there was a nugget of truth to what he said. We were getting off topic. Just why is headquarters so desperate for me to become an A-rank bracer? I can't see the logic behind it. Well, you see. Starting with what you know, the reparations from Erebonia have beefed up our economy this year, so all kinds of new investments are pouring in from across the continent. Now, I'm no economist, but people go where the money's at. And where people go, conflict follows. It's just how it is. I saw where he was going from there, electing to expand upon the rest myself. So now we have disputes between megacorporations and a stark increase in Jaeger activity. These are in addition to known growth of private military companies and increased tensions between mafias. You got it. Think it's bad now? It's only going to get worse from here. That's why Le Mans wants to up security here while promoting our rising star. You. They see it as good PR for the guild and a deterrent to any potential threats that are thinking about stepping out of line. Perhaps I was more vaguely aware of their goal in using me than I wanted to admit. This didn't make hearing the answer any more satisfying. If they have you asking me to play my part, then surely they have asked you to play your part already. You've been recommended for S rank, haven't you? If you know of a better deterrent than having an S rank in Calvert, then I'd like to hear it. Zin scritched the back of his head awkwardly upon the statement. I just don't think I'm up there with someone like Cassius Bright. S isn't even an official rank, and even if it was, just look at me. You think a guy like me's picture-perfect advertisement for the guild? I think you have the skills, achievements, and build to be one, yes. A curt, quick response. Alright, point made. I can't force you to take the recommendation, and I'm not about to be a hypocrite. Just, let me know if you change your mind, okay? With that, the conversation came to an end, and the guild's bracers gathered to begin our routine meeting of delegating open requests. This is how I prefer things. It was better to stay like this. There was a point when I wanted to be something more. I can no longer remember when that was. Something during my childhood had happened. Sometime during my childhood it happened, I'm sure. I just recall realizing how small the world truly was. So I prayed and longed to become someone I was not. It was around high school when I thought I became that someone. Those years were unforgettable. I'll never forget the unexpected reunion that was had there, nor the priceless treasure I had gained. I truly thought I'd gotten closer to who I wanted to be. But in the end, it was just wishful thinking. My hand, once held, was now empty, and I was still a nobody. But I refused to stand still. I grew unrelenting in following the new path I chose for myself, ignoring my family's objections. My motivations had changed, however. I no longer possessed that girlhood desire of becoming something more. Of becoming someone. I just need to keep moving, however aimless that movement was. Well, aren't we looking gorgeous today? With a whimsical wink, a familiar bartender welcomed me to his establishment. He was a tall, affable man who lived by his own rules and never hesitated to lend a helping hand to others. He reminded me much of Crossbell City Branch's receptionist from a few times I visited for work. The place was nearly empty today. I sat down on the counter seat furthest from the door as he approached. The usual, sweetheart. I stopped by here after a hard day's work on occasion, and whenever I did, I always ordered coffee and a light snack. This is not a coffee and snacks kind of day. I want something with alcohol. Even beer will do. Not at all fazed by the vagueness of my order, he walked away and started preparing my drink. It wasn't long before he returned and placed an elegant glass in front of me. I think this is a little more than a beer. It was a beautiful cocktail composed of two colors. A clear blue like that of a priceless sapphire and a calming jade. No doubt he could tell how disquieted my heart was and was trying to soothe it its own way. I thanked him inwardly before daring to broach my other reason for coming. Have you learned anything more about what I asked? Apart from being a skilled bartender, he was also a well-known informant. He was extremely well connected to the guild, the press, and even the criminal underworld, but he was very careful never to overstep his bounds with that last one. Indeed, I found him to be a valuable source when needed. Excuse me. I wish I could say yes, but not even Dingo has any promising leads. Still, I think you've got your eyes on the right district. It's only a matter of time before they get smoked out. I see. Since the guild's investigation turned up nothing, I was hoping he would better point me in the right direction, but it seemed this was going to be a lot harder than I hoped for. Things will work out, just pace yourself and keep at it a little bit at a time. That also applies to that cocktail. It's a strong one, so don't drink it all at once. I tilted the glass delicately between my fingers as he stepped away, my mind continuing to wade through the case I was following. There had been a stark increase in illegal drugs on the market, and not just any drugs either, but ones of highly addictive, dangerous variety. Heyue, who effectively ruled over the criminal underworld in Calvard, ordinarily limited their proliferation in the market as part of their rules. Limiting the number of drugs, of course, far from the ideal of them, but none could deny that the syndicate's actions had brought some semblance of order to where chaos often reigned supreme. Yet the past few years had seen a worrying number of criminal groups rebelling against these carefully curated rules. One of these groups was surely behind the change in the market, and all of this had a presumed connection to two missing people. The guild and police had been tasked with searching for two children below the age of 10, a boy and his young sister. They simply left the house one day and not been seen since. Evidence suggested they came from a perfectly ordinary family on good terms with one another, so the likelihood of them running away was slim. We mulled over the suspicion that they had been abducted for ransom early on, but not a single demand was made following their disappearance, so it was quickly ruled out. Despite a healthy amount of manpower that was coming from both sides, neither the guild nor the police had yet to find them. That said, the search so far had not proved entirely fruitless. Their last known location was fortunately established, and it was, unfortunately, a popular site for illicit drug use. The working theory from there became that the siblings witnessed a transaction and were held captive by the criminal parties involved as a result. If that held true, then the longer it took our parties to find them, the greater the danger their lives were in. The abductors couldn't do anything right away. Murder was sure to leave trace evidence behind, but it was only a matter of time before they resorted to that or trafficking abroad to be rid of them. With each passing second, the odds of the children being returned unharmed were dropping to zero. At the same time, all of this was pure speculation on our part based on a single established location. For all we knew, this had nothing to do with the criminal underworld at all. The potential dangers thrown around made inaction an agonizing task, but if there was no evidence to go on, action was impossible. We could forcibly arrest any suspicious people on site and make them talk should we wish it. But that would be a direct violation of the Guild's code and its founding principles. The Bracer Guild always sought to be an ally of the people first and foremost, so resorting to criminal acts to obtain evidence was out of the question. If only this strict adherence to our code didn't stop us from being able to resolve so many crimes, thereby putting the people we swore to protect in danger. It was the ultimate impasse. As I found myself pondering on the impossible dilemma the Bracers had placed themselves in, a familiar face came to mind. He was a childhood friend with blue-tinged, unkempt hair. Though we had lost contact with one another some years before, he one day returned to the city as suddenly as he had left it. Soon after starting up a peculiar profession that skirted the line of legality to a dangerous degree. The kind of profession that could easily involve himself in the affairs of many an unscrupulous individual, or so I believed. Just what did that idiot think he was doing? He walked out of my life without warning and walked back in much the same. I'd spent so much time searching for him, I knew our reunion would be an awkward one based on how we parted, but for him to return after all that waiting, all that searching, and dive into some questionable enterprise so different from my own was almost too much to bear. It gave rise to many concerns as a Bracer, and many more concerns as a friend. And the one that bothered me the most was, why hadn't he come to see me? Did he have any idea how worried I was about him? How worried I am about him? Irritation building, I took a large gulp of my cocktail, but the alcohol only fanned the flames of anger burning in my heart. Just remember that. Coping mechanism, and it'll also blow shit out of proportion. In a hurry. They burned brighter and brighter, still becoming a dazzling white that projected countless transient images of the past. Then, just as quickly as it had flared, my anger faded in an instant, replacing itself with a very different emotion altogether. Why did you leave me? The words slipped from my mouth without me realizing it, making me feel downright pitiful once they were said. If someone were to see me in this state... You still haven't moved on, I see. A familiar but unexpected voice called out to me, causing me to jump slightly from a surprise. I quickly regained my composure. I just have a few choice words I'd like to say. My response feigned calmness as best I could. I couldn't help but think I had more than a few choice words, really, but following up with that would aid my annoyance in a way I would rather not further. Oh, I imagine you have more than a few. Right, of course he would see right through me. The bespectacled man then sat down next to me, as though our running into each other was no coincidence. He was another childhood friend of both myself and the one I was lamenting over, and someone who followed a remarkably different career path from either one of us. If it's still bothering you that much, why not just go and see him? You already have his address by now, surely. How could I with how much time has passed? As I mumbled my response meekly, I thought I could hear the man next to me chuckle. Well, then I suppose there's no need to rush things. With your lines of work, I'm sure your paths will cross naturally enough in due time. I didn't expect that kind of response. You make it sound so romantic. Lest you have forgotten, I don't struggle with expressing what's in my heart the way he does. Now, since we're here, how about a toast? I'll, make your next one non-alcoholic. At least you have forgotten I can handle my liquor just fine, thank you very much. We then spent the rest of our time reminiscing about the past. It had been too long since we were able to just sit and talk like this. It wasn't that he and I had become estranged, but both our jobs made it a trying task to meet even at the best of times. By the way, I've heard word you turned down becoming an A-rank bracer again? Of course that wouldn't escape the CID's ears. The information itself wasn't confidential, but that he already knew something, however unofficial it was entirely typical of him. The Bracer Guild focused on protecting civilians, while the CID focused solely on the needs of the president in office. The groups were neither enemies nor allies, they simply had very different goals where work was concerned. I know it isn't my place to tell you to accept the offer. However, he paused before resuming, his tone becoming markedly more serious. The times we live in demand a new hero. That much is clear. I had no idea what a realist like him was trying to say by implying I was a hero. But before I could inquire further, he changed to the subject that was likely what brought him to find me in the first place. Now, if you don't mind, I have something that will be of interest to you regarding those missing children. My eyes widened from the unexpected change. He continued. We've identified the group that made the district their turf, as well as have compelling evidence of a crime taking place. You may proceed as you like in cooperation with the police. I couldn't believe it. On a fine silver platter, he had given me just cause to act, and since the information came from the CID, there was no reason to doubt its veracity. I felt it. I was on the verge of rekindling my girlhood desires. All I had done till now was follow life where it was taking me. And yet here I found myself before a new path that could lead to that someone I once wanted to be. This deviation terrified me. What if it led me to losing someone again? What if it ended in more pain? My fear begged me to stay idle. I was a fragile human being at my core. I knew it well. It made me wish I was anything but. It inspired me to take up the sword and rebel against any whispers of weakness, and I played the part admirably on the surface. But if I were forced to face cruel reality in the future, I wondered, would my heart be able to take it? As I sidestepped to the left, I shifted my center of gravity and unleashed a flurry of slashes against my first foe, using that momentum to thrust both myself and my blade toward my second. Two low-ranking mobsters fell to the ground. They were members of a mafia I had been chasing, and right now I was in the thick of their den of operations. My friend gave the guild and police the excuse we needed to take a more direct stance against our targets. His information was vague, however, so we still had to discern their precise location on our own. I, Zin, and several other bracers agreed it would be best to split our forces and attack several locations in unison for this part of our mission. Based on what just transpired, it appeared my location was the lucky winner. There's the intruder. Hey, I've seen her before. She's from the paper. Two more reinforcements arrived, but I was hardly going to give them time to act. I raced forward, swinging my sword twice as I passed them, and they fell before they could even raise their weapons. I advanced. Mobsters appeared in droves. Presumably, word of my arrival had already spread. There she is. She's that bracer word's been going on about. Well, damn it. What if the immovable's here too? Don't be chicken shit, it's one woman. We can take care of her. They then charged me in a mass, at least 10 of them, with more reinforcements on their way from farther inside the building. Forcing my way through with how many they had in their number was risky. I knew the sensible thing to do would be to wait for the other bracers to show, but I also had to consider, what if my waiting afforded the Mafia the time to wield the children as hostages? Weighing the two options, I concluded that whatever reduced the chances of that happening was worth the cost. I needed to push on and settle this now. Besides, I believed I had nothing to fear from this pitiful group as they were. They were seasoned combat veterans. They could have used their numerical advantage to implement complex formations and corner me, but they did no such thing. The amateurs. And they dared to believe they held a candle to the Heiwei's martial arts? In the face of one of my experience, their bloated size was more of a hindrance than a help. They wouldn't be able to utilize even half of their potential against me. I first had to position myself against them appropriately. If I could ensure the gun-toting wielders among them were in each other's line of fire while rounding up the close-ranged fighters to a single spot, they would soon have bigger worries, friendly fire. Their vulnerabilities would then spell my victory as I cut them down. One down, two down. The precious seconds after defeating a foe were the most advantageous. Just as a man had fallen, I was on to another before they had time to adjust to my incoming blade. There were no patterns to who was next by design. I chose my targets with stunning erraticism, throwing them into complete disarray as more collapsed to the ground. 3 down, 4. I would go around them in a wide circle. I would move between them, while remaining ever aware of any surprise assaults at my back. I waded through them till I encountered the ones farthest back. These ones never even considered I would be able to reach them. They were spread so carelessly. The men took up their guns with newly alert panic strewn across their faces, but their fate was already sealed. They were powerless as I closed the gap between us. Every time it gets me. 5, 6, 7. With over half their numbers down, the remaining mobsters were quickly losing their will to counter. Some attacked out of adrenaline-induced desperation, calculating their next move so poorly that they fell into my long-set trap and accidentally attacked themselves. At this point, the battle was as good as final. All I had to do was continue taking them down till I was the last one standing. There were smaller groups I encountered on my way through the building, but I was able to disable them with little effort. The path they opened up for me eventually led me to their leader. He was a middle-aged fellow pacing restlessly around an unpleasantly gaudy room until I entered. He twitched in fear upon the very sight of me. "Why are you here? Where are my men?" Kissing the floors. I answered so calmly and concisely that he balked in disbelief. "That's impossible! I sweat my balls off to build this group from the ground up, and you're saying a girl like you tore it all down just like that?" I ignored his crude language and drew closer. As I thrust my sword till it sat just between his eyes, he let out a squeal. "Well, I'm no ordinary girl. I'm a bracer. And don't worry, I didn't kill them. They have only been knocked out or restrained. You'll be seeing them again soon, in prison." I shot a darkened glare in his direction as the tip of my sword wandered downward to his neck. "Now I have some questions for you, and you will answer them." The man nodded emphatically, his whole body trembling from fear. "2 children, a boy and a girl under 10 years old, disappeared last month. Your people abducted them, didn't they?" He nodded. "I knew it! Then where are they? What did you do to them?" "They're in a room farther inside. They're alive." At least I could breathe a sigh of relief. My most fundamental objective when coming here could be fulfilled. Next, I needed to ask him more about his group. "I thought you all seemed far too weak to be charged of this district of the city, but after coming across your account book, everything fell into place. You're working on behalf of someone else, aren't you?" He was so unsure of how to respond that he fell completely silent, but that alone gave me my answer. "Who is it then? Tell me. Is it A?" I can't." He flinched in fear as I pressed him, resisting as though he genuinely couldn't say. Then, just as he opened his trembling lips to speak, I heard a strange thudding sound from outside the room. I stepped away from the man, my sword still firmly in hand. Crunching, squelching, splattering. More sounds. These more audible than the first. I didn't know what to make of them, but they made me feel an instinctive revulsion as they dragged on. They may have come accompanied by faint groans, but if they did, they faded just as soon as the sounds themselves. I remained on guard as I stepped out into the hallway, ready to be attacked from any angle at any moment. And the sight that greeted me defied all imagination. The mobsters I fought through mere minutes before were now nothing more than distorted, mutilated piles of flesh and bone. Not just 1 or 2, every single one of them without exception had been reduced to bloodied mounds. Some were without heads, others had their organs ripped from their abdomens. Then there were those with their skulls caved in and leaking pulverized brain matter, or the ones with their hearts pulled out and squeezed. God, how brutal that part is. Jesus Christ, man. Each corpse was different. Each corpse was unbearable to look at. The plain hallway I traversed with all due speed was now covered in a sticky, slimy red. Who could have done something like this? The sight was so awful that my free hand, now clenched, shook from disgust. When was it ever necessary to go this far? What could anyone have to gain from this? Wait, no! I realized I had just made a very careless mistake. I turned and hurried back into the room I was just in. I was too late. The Mafia's leader was floating in the air at the center of the room, as though some unknown force was holding him up by his chest. A monstrous sword pierced through his chest. A single streak of blood dripped from his unspeaking mouth. There was no room to believe he was anything but dead. Like all the others in the hallway, he didn't even have time to scream before his life was taken. Fucking A, man. Who are you? I barked at the center of the room, trying to drove out my instinctive fear with anger. Drown out. At a glance, only the corpse and I were present, but if I strained my eyes, I could see the faint contours of another distorting the space around them. It must have been some form of active camouflage. I would have thought it basic courtesy to give your name before asking another's. Charming Ace of the Bracer Guild. Charming Ace. It was a man's voice that projected true arrogance, as though he were above all others as a matter of course. I instinctively readied myself for battle in response, but my actions seemed not to faze him in the slightest. Excuse me. No need to be spoiling for a fight. I'm simply here to take out the trash after they were careless enough to leave a trail for the CID to follow. Was I really talking to a fellow human being? How could he speak of such gruesome murders in those terms? Are you a business partner of theirs? No, you must be from the group above them. Very good. He then swung his blade to slide and toss the corpse off to the side with all respect of a used cigarette. How could you treat people you worked with like this? People? Have you your ears? I said nothing about taking out a person, only trash. The same applies to the garbage piling up in the hallway. They have always been so, even before they stopped breathing. It was clear that communicating with someone of his nature was impossible. I dismissed calm reason for an intense, all-consuming anger so great that my entire body wouldn't stop trembling. You monster! Before I knew it, I had sprung into action, pouting every drop of my strength into my blade to launch a swift, unavoidable strike. But he repelled it with one vertical swing of his own. This one exchange was enough to tell me that his strength was well a league above mine. He parried my blow at the most perfect instant, canceling out the force of my attack with so little effort that it barely scratched the surface of what he was capable of. The active camouflage did nothing to hide the monstrous nature of his cruciform sword either. Its design combined silver and black in an unholy fusion of darkness and light, as if chaos itself dwelled within its very blade. It was no common weapon. Even if I continued to give it my all, my odds of winning against him were extremely slim. But at the same time, my instincts were screaming at me that I could not allow him to leave. I charged again. If attacking him from the front wasn't going to work, then I would have to go for his side. He'd blocked that attack with just as little effort, but I wasn't done yet. I refused to stop moving, slashing a third time with even more speed than the first two. I showered him in a flurry of them, each one faster than the last. When I finally reached my physical limit, I darted in a new direction, attacking him from behind. I put my very soul into one overwhelming attack aimed directly at his rear, which I could only just make out through the camouflage's distortion. I got him! However, the second I became sure that victory was within my grasp, his cruciform blade carved a great arc through the air in a ferocious spinning slash. I was able to instantly defend myself against the blow, but the force of it sent me flying backward. I was fortunate enough to not have sustained a direct hit, but my body shook from now being able to fully cancel out its massive weight. Still, I forced myself back to my feet and glared at his form. The difference between us was night and day. It felt as though he could manipulate the very flow of battle, much like a master of martial arts who understood the true nature of all things. He paid no mind to my pitiful attempt at bravado and gave a short laugh before speaking. Impressive. You put up more of a fight than the rumors had led me to believe. What's your goal? What are you trying to do with all your strength? I expected him to reject or ignore me, so I was taken aback when he paused for a sincere moment of thought before answering. An interesting question. I suppose to instill fear. Fear? I almost doubted my ears. Fear is at the heart of all we know. Domination and servitude, order, harmony, and production. All of it exists because of fear. That is why I seek to instill fear in its purest form, much like the retributive tower that appeared in Crossbell half a year ago. Such a pity that it fell. There was such pleasure in his words that it made it easy to imagine the expressions on his veiled face. As insane as what he was saying sounded to me, I knew he meant every word of it. You really are a monster. Continue your fruitless attempts to stop me, and you'll understand what I mean in due time. He lowered his blade. As a parting gift for assisting me in my house cleaning efforts, I will let you and those children go. Keep that far too pristine blade sharp for our next meeting, Bracer. With that, he turned to leave. Wait! Just as I extended my hand, the ground below him emitted a bright glow, and by the time that glow had faded, he was gone. He had likely used the same teleportation spell that certain other criminal organizations were known to rely on. His departure also released all the strength I had left in me, not from relief, but from the exact opposite. I was so overwhelmed with frustration that I let him leave, so afraid of what he might go on to do because I couldn't stop him, that I lost the strength to even stand. Of course, this is just who I've always been. I haven't changed one bit since the day you left me. I'm still the same powerless girl I was back then. My work here wasn't finished yet. I walked to the next room. I opened the door and was greeted by what appeared to be an old storage space. There, across the hall, I found who I was searching for. The brother and sister pair were crouched against the wall, the boy trembling on the floor, and his sister stood close by. It's okay, I'm here to help you. I kept my tone as gentle and reassuring as I was able. The girl smiled while her older brother continued to hide his face. I slowly walked toward them, careful not to make any sudden movements, but as I did, the boy shook his head vigorously. His whole body trembled more the closer I got, as though he were telling me to stay away. The answer from that flashed in my mind. Fear is at the heart of all we know. These poor children were very much in fear's clutches. No matter how gradual I was in closing the distance between myself and the boy, trying my best not to provoke him, his body language showed he continued to reject me. We were now within arm's length of one another. His shaking grew more violent, and though he opened his mouth to speak, his voice refused to come out. It's all right. I smiled the most comforting smile. After that, I reached out behind me and grasped the blade of the knife that was being thrust toward me. I turned swiftly, my fingers never letting go, and found the one gripping the hilt to be none other than the sister. She had tiptoed around my back while I was kneeling to meet her brother and tried to stab me from behind. She was a bit startled by my halting her attack, but otherwise she stared blankly forward, emotion on her face nowhere to be seen. I suppose he was right about fear. It controls everything we do. You must have been through something terrifying if it made you resort to this. No doubt that they were now conditioned by fear to attack anyone who came to their rescue. I paid no mind to the blood from my bare hands slowly dripping on the floor. The cut from the knife was nothing compared to everything else in the moment. My first priority instead was to reassure the girl that I meant no harm. But we humans are capable of more than giving in to that fear. We can fight it. With courage, we can fight it. Your brother was doing just that now. He may have been gripped by fear, but he still fought his hardest through his actions to alert me of the danger his sister posed. Even if it took all he had, he wanted to keep me safe and to keep her from committing an irreversible, regrettable act. It was thanks to him that I noticed what she was trying to do. You don't have to be afraid anymore. I'm a bracer. I'll keep you safe. I took the girl into my arms. You're a bracer? Even her voice was devoid of emotion. That's right. I'm here to help you. Oh, I think I've seen you in a magazine before. Something Blade, I think? That's right. The nickname is a little embarrassing, but I'd be happy if you remembered it. That way, as long as you hear it, you'll know I'm here to keep you out of harm's way. I tightened my grip around her as if to stop anything more from hurting her, and surrounded her heart with my warmth. It really will be okay, I promise. I noticed her eyes twitch just slightly, and before long, her eyes filled with tears. Soon she began to sniffle, at first a small one here and there, till they gradually grew more pronounced, eventually turning into uncontrollable sobs. She had finally been liberated from her fear. As for me, I had stayed my course. I was too afraid to deviate from my current path. I had chosen this path with pride in my heart. I didn't think it right to turn my back on it now, but I wasn't going to let it be an aimless journey from now on either. And so, it was another day in the Edith branch of Calvard's Guild. It sounds like that mafia was trying to copy what the other organization of assassins managed to pull off. I was discussing the recent case with Zin. The siblings had indeed been abducted because they witnessed an illegal transaction. The mafia involved then thought to mimic a group of assassins known for raising children with the intent of turning them into professional killers. Their attempts, thankfully, proved as unsuccessful as their attempts to remain covert in selling drugs. The CID found them, and whoever they were working for purged them. Hell of a way to go. If I hadn't been so incompetent, maybe they wouldn't have been purged at all. Don't beat yourself up about it. The Guild's priority is to keep civilians safe, not criminals. I don't want to say that they deserved it for getting involved in organized crime, but it is what it is. Try putting that frustration you're feeling into more personal growth instead of letting it eat you alive. I was told that while the siblings were going to need psychological counseling for some time, they were fully expected to recover and go back to their everyday lives. My meeting with them had triggered something inside of me. I came to realize that something needed to change. I had to take some kind of step forward. Even if it ended in me falling to the floor in some dramatic fashion, I just needed to pick myself back up again. With that in mind, I accepted my multiple recommendations. Bruh. I'm smitten. All I've seen is like side and back profiles, and I'm like, yes. The times we live in demand a new hero. Doing so made me think of what my childhood friend had said to me. I didn't believe I had what it took to be a hero. But if I could be even just a brief one, able to give the people hope and banish the darkness ahead, then that was reason enough to keep going. Maybe that could make somebody enough to fight alongside the real hero once they came to light. Well, shall we get down to business? Zin turned to face me, his classic broad grin even broader than usual. It'll be a while longer before the official paperwork arrives from headquarters, but I'm sure they won't mind me speeding up this part of the process with how much they wanted this. The Republic now has a bracer who reached A rank at the same age as the Empire's Purple Lightning. congrats on your promotion. Elaine Eclair. So it is Elaine. Eclair. Elaine Eclair. Beauty's Blade. That's right. Forward, sword in hand. The end. Absolutely fantastic. Like, as much as I loved seeing Ren, dude, I gotta say, forward in hand, for me, forward in hand, another Hot Springs Paradise, and an unconventional student. Really, like, all of them fantastic, without question. Super friggin' good, man. Really, really, really good. Return to the garden. Ichi, what's up, big dog? Crash, how are you, buddy? AMZ, what's up? How are you, bud? The last part had its own music, right? Does it? Dude, Jeff, same here. I am absolutely tickled. I'm tickled to see what it has for us. Okay, so then, I will dump the... I'm gonna break the fourth wall. Gonna break some immersion. Ready? But man, True Bonds, stellar backing track, I must say. Stellar. Okay, cool, perfect. Oh shit, what did I do?
Slab of Reminiscence activated.
I don't recall. I don't recall how to get to it. Oh, the Elaine one had music. Shame on me. It's a my bad. No, yeah, that's a wrap, right? We did all of them. I don't know what I was thinking. What, Phil, which one are you referring to? I'm sorry. You said time for the best one? Like, that's what I was looking for. I go, did I miss one? Oh, you were memeing. Bro, you had me at hello. No, that was really good. Super duper. Sorry. Just, big old fat ding dong over here. Don't mind me. I said Return to the Garden was my favorite? You did. That's right. Yeah, just under 3 hours. Good timing, for sure. Fantastic. I would be lying if I said that I couldn't feel it in my voice, for sure. Although, to give myself a pat on the back, I felt like I did a great job with my articulation and trying my hardest not to stumble over words. So, that felt really good. Less than 48 hours, dudes. We're almost there. Midnight is gonna hit when? What time is it right meow? Right meow. 11:30? Yeah. We're just about there, dude. Oh, and now your message. Yes, indeed you do. It says, hello everyone. I know Neo just pinged, but I have a quick thing to say that I kind of meant to say earlier in the day, but before that, I wanted to say happy Independence Day to us in the USA and happy belated Canada Day to my homies up north. Neo started his Trails path almost 4 years ago on October 4th, 2020. Since then, he has gathered countless people to watch him enjoy his tears and his screams that hurt my own ears. But I wouldn't think of a place I would rather be than watching him Friday when Trails Through Daybreak comes out. Thank you, man. Daybreak is upon us. We are less than 48 hours away and ticking. And to many, this game is peak Trails. So us mods are going to be making sure things are a bit calmer. If there's foreshadowing or spoilers, no love is lost in any way. To those that took the time to read this, thank you. Now let us begin a new Trails together. I'm ready! We're ready! Let's go! Ichi, I do too, man. Dan's give me a reason to ban people message. Walt, what's up, bud? You big meatball. Grim, how are you, man? I can't wait, dude. Like, obviously, it goes without saying. Oh, Volpes! Man, you're probably 2 hours ago? I'm sorry, man. Look at the message for the 22 months, though. Thank you. That's my cousin, Volpes Vlogs. I'll be able to stay for at least a prologue Friday while I wait for the patch to download. Mods of the path to snipe spoilers, backseating. Absolutely. I had said it earlier tonight. I will say it again tomorrow, and I will say it probably just throughout. I want it to be made abundantly clear that if things end up getting nuked in chat, please do not take it personally. It is nothing against you. There is nobody means to discourage the excitement, the hype, or for you talking in chat, discussing stuff in chat, but it is just a matter of selfishly protecting my playthrough, just going at it as blind as I can, you know? So, mods and myself, we've already gone over things, just to keep an eye out for. But like I said, there'll be a tagged message at the beginning of Friday's stream when we launch. It's gonna be quick and to the point. It's, you know, no spoilers, no backseating, no exceptions. You know what I mean? Like, timeouts will be handed out. Stuff will get nixed from chat if need be. It's literally no love lost. You know what I mean? And I know that sounds kind of contradictory if I'm saying that we're gonna ban you or whatever, but it's not gonna be a ban right off the rip. It's more like the habitual offenders. You know what I mean? And I think, thankfully, in our time in Trails, or at least on our channel here, it hasn't happened very often, thankfully. So hopefully we just keep that vibe running. Also, thank you, Discord search tool, for allowing me to find when Neo first streamed Sky FC. Does it say it in Discord? That's crazy. And it's all because of Seiichi, formerly known as Shot. We were vibing, and he did some research, and he put me onto Trails, dude. He put me onto it. The rest is history. 100%. But an absolutely fantastic, cozy read all this week, man. It's been great. Tomorrow night we'll do our raffle. We'll watch Look Forward to Look Backward. You know what? You know what we're going to do? This right here. Ready? Okay.
Slab of Reminiscence activated.
Look back to look forward. There it is. So we're going to watch this tomorrow, and then we'll reload Cold Steel 4, and we'll watch that last boat with the Grandmaster as well. So that's what's on the docket for tomorrow. And then we, you know, we get rested up and we get ready for launch day on Friday, man. So before we conclude things here, let's see who's on that we can go and say what's up to. Cardboard, how are you, bud? Do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. Oh, let's go see Feb. Well, let's make sure Feb's actually going to be on. Yes, he's still. Okay, he's good to go. Am I getting in just as... Yeah, man, we've been at it since about 8:45-ish. Sorry, dog. I know. Time zones. It's the ultimate boss. But we're going to go see Feb. Our good friend, Mr. February Night 4, is who we're going to go and raid and say what's up to. A fellow Trails junkie, Trails aficionado, former Zero Field team member. Him and his team did phenomenal work with their spreadsheet overlays. Basically, their team would translate entries years before it would get to us here in the West. So, the new king of the Fire Emblem these days? Absolutely, for sure. So, if you guys haven't met Feb, I would absolutely encourage you drop in, say hello, get to know him. He's a good dude. Very good dude. But thank you all very, very much. It's been a hype as fuck week, man, already. We've done some great readings, really getting prepped, and then tomorrow night is like, you know, the ball is getting ready to drop. Like for New Year's, you know what I mean? Like, it's just been a super hype week, and I can't say enough how thankful I am for all of you, for our community, for this series, and just this platform as a whole for bringing us all together. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. Stay happy, stay healthy, stay excellent. Bye, guys. We'll see you tomorrow.